Good morning, dearest participants. Welcome to this year's 20th Journalism Seminar. Satchur lang!
Mga istoryang pang-news at hindi fake. As we formally start the program, we call on our participants to join us in an opening prayer to be led by Mr. John Casey Inocencio and the singing of the national anthem.
Sa puso mo ay hindi maiwasan ang pagdalaw nito, mga kalungkutan. Iyong alalahanin ba'y amang nagmamahal, laging nakamasid, laging nakabantay. Huwag kang mapalisa sa anumang bagay. Sa Ama ay ilapit iyong kahilingan, sa sambahin, purihin, pasalamatan, pagkat siyang mag-iingat ng puso mo't isipan. Huwag padadaig kahit nanulumbay ang pag-asang taglay ay iyong ingatan. Ang dalisay na aral iyong panghawakan. Ikaw ay may Diyos na madadaingan. Huwag kang mabalisa sa anumang bagay. Sa Ama ay ilapit iyong kahilingan, sambahin, purihin, pasalamatan, pagkat siyang mag-iingat ng puso mo't isipan. Iyong ilagak ang pagtitiwala sa Kanya, kumapit, Siya ang gagawa. Kung ika'y nangangamba at puso'y nanghihina, Kanyang nalalaman ang iyong pagluha. Huwag kang mapalisa sa anumang bagay. Sa Ama ay ilapit iyong kahilingan, sambahin, purihin, pasalamatan, pagkat siyang mag-iingat ng puso mo't isipan. Sambahin, purihin, pasalamatan, pagkat siyang mag-iingat ng puso mo isipan. Ang Diyos ay pag-ibig, lubhang mapagmahal. Ang di mo masabi, Siya ang may alam.
Magandang umaga participants. I am Marvin Tolibao.
And I am Ethel Mangao, and we are your hosts for this year's 20th Journalism Seminar entitled Sa True Lang, Mga Istoryang Pang-News at Hindi Fake.
At sa ating mga participant mula sa iba't ibang pamantasan, paaralan, organisasyon, maraming salamat sa pagsama sa amin sa 2 dekada ng paglulunsad ng Journalism Seminar.
Tama ka dyan, and grabe, 2 dekada na tayo. Biruin mo yon, 2 consistent and fruitful decades of honing our future journalists and of course, of equipping our participants to be critical producers and consumers of information.
Sa true lang. Alam mo, makasaysayan nga kung iisipin ang journalism seminar na to dahil bukod sa 22 taon na tayo, 22 taon partner, 20 taon lang pala, ay unang beses natin itong ginanap sa online. Saan ka pa?
That's true. Kaya naman, ika nila, no one is stopping us. If there's a will, there's a multitude of ways. Bagamat may pandemya, patuloy tayo sa pagpapalawak ng ating kaalaman at pagpapabuti ng ating mga kakayahan. At syempre, kasama natin sa kasaysayang ito, ang mga minamahal nating mga participants. Yay!
Ayan, gusto namin po kayo i-acknowledge ngayong umaga, kaya banggitin natin sila mula sa Cavite State University Main Campus, mula sa IMUS, sa Silang, sa 13, sa SICAT, sa Vera Files. Ano pa partner yung iba?
Siyempre, kasama din natin ang Dasmariñas Integrated High School, Santiago National High School, Emilio Aguinaldo College, Cavite, Immaculate Concepcion College of Balayan Incorporated, Lyceum of the Philippines, University Cavite, Philippine State College of Aeronautics, Bulihan Integrated National High School, and University of Perpetual Health System Delta, Las Piñas. Ayan, maraming
Salamat po sa ating mga participant at inaasahan po namin na makakasama namin kayo hanggang dulo ng programa, and we are hoping that you learn a thing or two or more from none other than our resource speakers na eksperto at mga scholars in the field of journalism, media literacy, and communication.
True, partner, and we highly encourage our participants to use our official hashtags for this year's journalism seminar whenever we are to share our live streaming and social media posts, and whenever we are to post something about the event on our social media account. So ano-ano nga ba ang ating mga hashtags?
Ang hashtag natin ay hashtag sa true lang. Gamitin lamang yan all caps. At eto lang yung isa. At ang panguli ay hashtag 2 dekada na po kami.
So we would also like to remind our participants to follow our webinar rules to maintain the orderliness of the program flow and to not distract the persons to speak in the course of our webinar.
So ayan, ano-ano nga ba ang ating mga webinar rules? Unang-una, we are requesting everyone to keep their microphones on mute. So para magkaroon tayo ng smooth and better discussion. I-turn off din natin ating mga camera pag di naman kinakailangan meron tayong mga speakers na nagsasalita na. At ang ating mga questions ay ma-entertain o ma-address during the Q&A every after the discussion. At muli, isang tanong lang kada isang tao para lahat naman ay napagbibigyan. At some of the slides or resources may be shared upon the resource speaker's permission. And merong kapangyarihan ng ating mga organizers para magtanggal ng mga medyo maglilikot na mga participants. So sana ay mag-focus tayo sa pagpupunla ng kaalaman ngayong umaga na ito. Tama ba, partner?
Yes, and I am very excited to start this day. Ikaw, excited ka ba, partner?
Ay nako, sobrang excited na rin ako. Simulan na natin. To give us her welcoming message, may we call on the ever-supportive and wonderful chairperson of the Department of Languages and Mass Communication of Cavite State University's College of Arts and Sciences, none other than Professor Rosa R. Hernandez.
Yes, let's give her a round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 20th Journalism Seminar titled Sa True Lang, Mga Istoryang Pang-News at Hindi Fake. I'm really so happy seeing too many participants this morning. Thank you for joining us and hoping you will still join us tomorrow. This is actually a two-day webinar organized by our ever good fourth-year journalism students. And this kind of two-day webinar aims to be an avenue for advocating the essence of truth-telling in these days and age of polarized views and bias or true information. I'm really too happy seeing a lot of participants today. But before anything else, please allow me to acknowledge the presence of our university officials and express our deepest gratitude at the same time for their untiring support towards the realization of this endeavor. On behalf of the Department of Languages and Mass Communication family and the College of Arts and Sciences, I would like to thank our fast and serious university president, Dr. Hernando D. Robles. Thank you, sir. Our energetic and dynamic Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Maria Agnes Pinuestra. Thank you, ma'am. Our young and equally indefatigable, ever supportive Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Bettina Joyce Ilagan. Ma'am, salamat po. Professor Sharad Isip, the Dean of Office of Student Affairs, other university officials, our invited lecturers, the credible, fearless, and tenacious journalists who are joining us today, and those who will be gracing the event tomorrow, parents, my colleagues, participating students, our satellite campuses, and other areas here in the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning. Looking at the number of participants on board, I can't help but to think that it's not just because it is a course requirement, but for sure, everybody here wants to be informed and be enlightened also of what is real news and the fake ones, especially at this current situation of the world brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. We actually now live in a world of twisted truth where fake news are lavishly circulating online, big thanks to trolls. For this year, we are lucky to have another set of credible journalists, media experts, who will surely share with us their learnings, views, and ideas for us to stay informed and connected. To tell you the truth, it is quite frustrating sometimes that the kind of technology that aids us to easily access the outstanding number of media content, the circulating information and experiences also hobble our already clouded thinking. Why is that? Can you blame the not so experienced journalists if there are, the platforms, or the informed community for not verifying the veracity of each piece of information? But do we really have the time to do that? This is the time where media plays its role, but believe it or not, there were times that we seem to be skeptic, uncertain, and even suspicious of everything unless otherwise. We've got that kind of trust to the radio and television networks and their news team giving us their conviction. Believing what is really authentic, especially this pandemic, is such a big challenge. The trolls are those whose only goal is to manipulate public discourse and opinion. The existing unverified news shared on social media that since they appeared to be an enthralling news piece went viral, and because they had been said and heard many times, appeared to be true and genuine. The dissemination patterns of the news or information may be different depending on who shares the content, what type of content is being shared, and which social media it is being shared on. And actually, everybody should have to be very analytic and, of course, extra careful in reading and, of course, believing to all those things surrounding us. And for the seminar, I am actually requesting all the participants that after the lecture, please be encouraged to participate in the Q&A, our question and answer portion, especially if you really want to be clarified and dive deeper in the sense that you should have to find more news in it. And for sure, our speakers will be more than willing to accommodate all or your queries. And if you would be asking of the recorded version of the seminar, don't you worry. I will ask the organizer of the webinar. We are hoping that you will also be interested finishing the webinar series because we still have this like tomorrow. Again, congratulations to you guys. I love you all. The BA Journalism 4th year Sir Renz Kevin Alcazar for your guidance and all-time support to make this webinar a big success. To all the participants, thank you for taking part in this endeavor. May all of you continue to be a good influence to others in achieving a fair and balanced news reporting and writing. And for those of you who have just joined us, welcome and enjoy the webinar series. Thank you very much and good morning again. Love you guys.
Merci beaucoup once again, Professor Hernandez. That is truly a good way to start our program.
Thank you guys.
Totoo yan. Maraming salamat po, Ms. Hernandez, na napaka-inspirational din at na masarap na marinig mula sa ating chair mismo na meron siyang suporta at merong pagkilala sa mga nasa likod ng programang ito at mga estudyante na naghirap ng ilang linggo rin, no, para masakatuparan ng programang ito.
The true partner. So ngayon naman, we are going to hear an inspirational remarks from our beloved and beautiful Dean of CBSU's College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Bettina Joyce Ilagan. Let's give Dr. Ilagan a virtual round of applause.
Thank you very much, Ethel and Marvin. To all the participants here in the meeting room and to the 300 plus viewers in the FB group, good morning to all of you. Advance Merry Christmas. On behalf of the entire AS family, I would like to say congratulations to all the fourth-year journalism students for organizing this 20th journalism seminar. As you have mentioned, Ethel and Marvin, in your opening spiels, this is the 20th and this is historic. I would like to thank you for keeping the tradition alive because despite and in spite of the limitations of the setup that we have at this moment, you were still able to put up this journalism seminar, which is themed sa true lang, mga istoryang pang news at hindi fake. And this is actually very relevant and timely. You know, I commend you, journalism students, and your professor, Mr. Mr. Renz Kevin Alcazar, for organizing this event. When I got your invitation, I was surprised because what you have given me, or what the task that you have given me, is to give you an inspirational remarks. But really, I thought na just my mere presence alone in this meeting room would give inspiration to all of you already. True ba or fake? Okay. Again, thank you for this opportunity, no? But really, I have only a very simple message for you that is also relevant to your theme. And that is love, truth, and always speak the truth in love. You know, some people despise truth because they say it hurts. But what we should always remember is if we speak truth with and in love, we can never go wrong. It may be hurtful, but the impact would be less if we do that, and people will understand the reason why we are doing this, why we are speaking the truth in love. And as you know, one of the lessons that we have learned from the recently concluded Startup, our favorite Korean drama at the moment, Sabi ni Miss Yoon of Sandbox, we should always know our why. Why are we doing these things? Okay, so again, that's very simple, and I hope you will be able to leave it, no? Love truth and always speak the truth with and in love. And at this point, again, I would like to tell you that this is relevant because in this time that we are facing the pandemic, we are not just battling COVID-19, we are also battling infodemic. As you know, misinformation and disinformation proliferate. Hence, it is very important that all of us would become discerning and critical consumers and producers of information. I'm sure all of us have Facebook accounts. All of us probably have Twitter, have Instagram, and we have to think what sort of information are we giving and feeding our followers? Are this truthful? Are this accurate? So this journalism seminar is a timely opportunity for us to learn these things. It's very important, especially again, us communication and journalism scholars, to be educated, you know. And what better way to learn but from our distinguished set of speakers. And I would like to personally thank them for sharing their precious time with us this morning. I would like to thank them for being so generous, taking the time out from their busy schedule to be with our journalism students, not just from CVSU main campus, but also from other institutions. So, alam nyo, when I saw the program, natuwa po ako because last year, yung better half ng ating first speaker was with us in campus. And this year, we're having the other better half uh, virtually. So I'm thankful to all the speakers. Again, please accept my gratitude to all of you. Also, I would like to address the participants. Take this opportunity to learn and engage uh, with our speakers, or to learn from and to engage with our speakers. You know, don't hesitate to ask questions. Make the most out of this opportunity and make the most out of this experience. Ano? Ask questions if you need to. Communicate para ano pa at nasa journalism and communication field tayo. Kung mahihiya tayong magtanong, kung mahihiya tayong humanap ng kaalaman, 'di ba? These are the reasons why we are here. And once we were able to gather information and seek truth, then rightfully we should spread them. So whatever lessons that you will learn from this journalism seminar, I hope you will spread the word. But take note, it should be sa true lang. Mga istoryang pang news at hindi fake. And with that, again, I would like to congratulate everyone and thank you all for organizing this 20th journalism seminar. Mabuhay kayong lahat. Stay safe always. God bless you all.
From our dean, ni Ma'am, it's better to hurt me with the truth than comfort me with lies. So, alam natin kung anong i-expect natin sa seminar na to. Thank you once again, Dr. Victor and John.
Thank you po, Miss Dean. At Ethel, tumatak sa akin, no? When we speak the truth and love, we can never go wrong, di ba? Unang-unang umaga, hugot. Kaya maraming salamat po ulit, Miss Dean. And as we move on towards the webinar proper, meron tayong pa-promo. Ethel, ano nga ba ang pa-promo na ito?
Just share your lang na takeaways while you listen to our resource speakers. And pwede kang manalo ng 100 pesos load!
Tama! Ulit! 100 pesos load! Saan ka makukuha nun? At nakakatulong din sa atin sa ating online classes. Kaya ang gagawin lamang ay ulit, share your takeaways using the hashtag sa Trulang, hashtag 20th Journsem, hashtag 2 dekada na po kami. Kung ano mga natutunan nyo habang nakasalita ating mga resource speakers, i-share lamang, i-public nyo yan, i-comment nyo din sa ating live or sa ating chat box, sa ating mga nasa Zoom meeting at babasahin natin yan.
So magsasara ang pagtanggap natin sa inyong mga lang na takeaways right after the Q&A session of our last resource speaker.
Tama yan. So ito na, partner. Ready ka na ba?
Ewan ko, partner. Hindi ko alam kung na-excite ako, nininervyos. Mukhang mga bigatan ng mga resource speakers natin ngayon. So ito na nga ang pinakahihintay nating lahat. Ang makilala at makapakinig mula sa ating unang resource speaker. So sino nga ba ating unang resource speaker?
Ang unang resource speaker ay senior reporter ng 24 Oras at other news program of GMA7 and GMA News TV. An anchor and host of the longest running morning show on Philippine TV. Galing pa siya rito, galing po siyang Unang Hirit. Produces documentaries for Brigada, Eyewitness, and Born to be Wild. At hindi rin siya nagpatinag kahit nung dumating ang pandemya, siya pa rin ang naging frontliner natin sa paghatid ng balita. Graduate ng BA Broadcast Communications ng University of the Philippines, Diliman, cum laude, an Anak TV Seal Awardee, 2000 2019 pinakamahusay na mamahayag ng taon at Gawat Tanglaw 2019 Best Female Field Reporter, Please Umali. Welcome po, Miss Maris.
Hello. Hello everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Alright, so bago ko po isa-isahin ang mga bagay kung paano ba nabubuo ang isang istorya o balitang inyong napapanood sa aming mga programa, hayaan nyo munang kwentuhan ko muna kayo ngayong umaga, yung kwento sa likod ng balita. Nakikita nyo ba yung, ito, may papakita akong screen.
Yes po, nakikita po namin.
Alright. So, January 12, linggo noon. January 12, 2020. So it was a Sunday. After my serve as a lector at Sacred Heart of Jesus Parish Shrine in the morning, my husband, Rafi, and I, si Rafi na binanggit kanina ni Dean na nag-guest sa inyo last year, we had lunch together noong January 12, 2020 after my serve as a lector. Since weekends are my only chance to get a whole day of rest, I indulged to the invitation of my bed, and without knowing, I was practically asleep the whole day. Perhaps I would have easily dozed off until the next day if it weren't for the incessant rings on my phone. I was jolted awake at around 8 p.m., alas 8 ng gabi. I had no idea what was going on in the world at that time until I saw a series of text messages informing me that I will be deployed to Batangas the next day to remote anchor live for Unang Hirit. Since the program starts at 4:55 a.m. during that time, I had to pull out at 1 a.m. to give me ample time to prepare for my news anchoring duty. I was bemused, sobra ako nagulat. What's going on? I asked to myself. Why do I have to be deployed all of a sudden and so early in the morning? Ano ba ang nangyayari? Tinanong ko uli ang sarili ko. Rafi was in the sala during that time. So even before I was able to ask him, I already saw different images and videos of Taal volcano spewing ash, erupting violently. Suddenly, everything started to make sense to me. Oh my gosh, this is such a big breaking story. Syempre, I had to be deployed right away. Ganoon ang buhay namin sa news. Prepared or not, you just have to be prepared for any eventuality and be ready to be deployed where the breaking news is happening. When I told Rafi about it, he said that he was also being assigned to cover the eruption of Taal. Good thing, at least both of us will be there. But we were to leave separately since he has his own news crew and I had mine. May sarili kasi kaming mga teams eh. The eruption of Taal seemed endless, so we also had to stay there for as long as it is still fiercely spewing ash. We were there for 2 weeks until it started to quiet down. My first time in 2020 to wear a face mask, an N95 mask, as well as goggles to shield us from the ashes. Wala akong kaide-ideya noong mga panahong iyon na yung mask pala na yon ay magiging literal na bahagi na ng aking mukha. The eruption of Taal that left 39 dead and so many more families displaced because of volcanic earthquakes and piles of ashes that buried most of their properties was the beginning of a seeming curse brought forth by the year 2020. After the eruption of Taal, we went about our daily news duties. The usual, the ordinary coverages we've been used to cover. By the end of January, we started learning about and delivering news about this certain nCoV, novel coronavirus. Ano ba tong novel coronavirus? Novel. Bago, a new type of disease that was first reported by officials in Wuhan City, China in December 2019. During that time, we still didn't have any idea of how serious and fatal this disease could be. nCoV was a mystery during that time, sending us chills and fear when reports of sudden deaths or of people just collapsing on the streets associated with the disease first came to air. Later on, nCoV was renamed coronavirus disease 19 or COVID-19, an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. According to experts, most people infected with this will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special treatment. Yung iba naman, asymptomatic. But it can also make some people very, very ill. To others, the disease can be fatal, especially for older ones and those with pre-existing medical conditions or comorbidities, such as high blood pressure, heart problems, or diabetes. They are the ones most vulnerable to COVID-19. COVID-19 still remains one of the most difficult conundrums for the experts. On March 11, 2020, however, the World Health Organization announces COVID-19 outbreak as a pandemic. On March 16, 2020, President Rodrigo Duterte addresses the nation, declaring an enhanced community quarantine in the entire Luzon. Later on, a nationwide lockdown. At this time, it wasn't just our country, but the whole world that was put to a halt. Deaths and other severe cases of COVID-19 were being reported left and right worldwide. We were stopped from doing things that we love and we were so used to do, going to school, to work, riding public transportation, going to the malls, watching movies, eating out, traveling, meeting with family and friends, hugging and kissing them, going to church. We were all prevented to do these things to avert the spread of the virus. Suddenly, these things were what we needed to do to show our love, care, and compassion for others. Dahil tumigil ang maraming trabaho, nagsara muna ang maraming industriya at establishmento, akala ko, titigil din muna ang pagbabalita. Naisip ko, sa wakas, magkakaroon na rin kami ng bakasyon. Mahaba-haba. Pero yun ay akala lang pala. Dahil habang maraming bagay ang tumigil, habang halos lahat ay na-lockdown sa bahay at bawal lumabas, hindi pa rin pala titigil ang balita. At kaming tagapagbalita ay kailangan pa rin lumabas at makipagsapalaran. Sa gitna ng pandemya, sa gitna ng di makitang kalaban, kailangan pa rin naming maghatid ng balita. Ito lamang kasi ang paraan para makatulong sa publiko kung anong pwedeng gawin sa mga panahong lito ang lahat. Sa panahong di natin malaman ano ba ang mga dapat gawin. Ang balita ang nagsisilbing gabay sa ating pang-araw-araw na buhay sa gitna ng lockdown. We never thought na na magtatagal ito. Ang akala natin, mabilis lang, di ba? We never thought that during that time this would last long, but it actually did. The whole year 2020 just practically went by. The consequences of this pandemic seemed endless and were ruthless to most people. As they lost their jobs, lost their livelihood, their businesses, lost their homes, or couldn't even go home due to lockdowns. And the harshest of all, they lost their loved ones. All these things I saw firsthand as I continued to cover on the field every day to deliver the news on COVID-19. It was painful, tragic, distressing, and traumatic. I couldn't emphasize any further the adverse and terrible effects of this pandemic to ordinary citizens. But the truth is, this virus is actually a great equalizer that made us realize that we have nothing, power, wealth, nor fame to rely on to save us from this pandemic. As of the most recent count by Johns Hopkins University, the number of confirmed COVID cases globally has reached 68.5 million and still counting. Global deaths reached 1.56 million, and unfortunately, still counting. And the most powerful country in the world, the United States of America, still ranks first among those with confirmed COVID cases with 15.2 million and counting. And their deaths already breached the 280,000 mark with 286,000 and counting. What did power, wealth, or technology do to help them arrest the disease? Hindi natin alam. Of course, right now, America, together with the United Kingdom, Russia, and China, the most powerful and richest countries in the world, also are the ones leading in the development of vaccines against COVID-19. United Kingdom has already started administering the vaccine this week. Probably and hopefully, they'd reach the market by end of this year until middle of next year, and that's good news. But we are still not sure. We are not assured right now of its efficacy and safety since they are still on the clinical trial stage. Experts say some vaccines like those of Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna have reached 95 and 94% effectivity rate respectively, thanks to science and technology. But until then, we wait patiently. This COVID pandemic indeed is unprecedented, and it really caught the world off guard. We never expected the world to suddenly stop and reset this way. We never expected to suddenly feel how important and valuable some things are that we normally take for granted before. But ultimately, this pandemic is also teaching us one very important truth, and that is, it is only God who can save us from all these. Though access inside churches were limited, this pandemic gave us a chance to talk to God more often, anywhere we are. We were given the option to attend Mass at home via online streaming, thanks to technology. Thanks to technology? Yes, but more so, thanks to God for technology. We were called to rely and depend on Him to get us through this extremely difficult situation we are in. This pandemic has really changed our lives so much. But if we are to look at it from a different perspective, we will see how this pandemic also is both humbling and empowering for all of us. Humbling because despite our wealth, power, fame, or beauty, this made us feel that we are nothing without God. But at the same time, empowering because this pandemic also gave us the opportunity to discover and realize our other God-given gifts and talents, skills that we didn't perceive to have before, like cooking, doing business, being able to grow plants and become plantitos, plantitas, halamoms, that even we were brought down by this pandemic, we will still find ways to rise and to thrive with the grace of God. Kaya ko naman binanggit yung Panginoon dahil sa halos lahat ng mga kinover ko, nitong Pagbangon segment. We have a segment in 24 Oras called Pagbangon, where we feature inspiring stories of people's resilience. Those brought about or those brought down by the pandemic but still try their best to recover. Lahat sila iisang sinasabi na ang naging susi nila para makabangon ay ang Panginoon. So talagang naging pagkakataon nito para ma-realize natin how God is working in all of us. So this one is Pagbangon of a restaurateur who almost closed her restaurant to venturing into food tray delivery and even managed to hold donation drives for frontliners. Pagbangon of a seaman who lost his job to putting up his own business of selling healthy juices called Lemonation. Of another seafarer who was also laid off and became a delivery rider. Of another seaman to becoming a seller of plants and pots. Pagbangon of OFWs laid off from work to becoming voice talents. Of students who are bored from staying home to becoming ukaypreneurs. Of an American architect who was locked down here in the Philippines and decided to stay with his fiancée here and set up a Mexican food cart. And the pagbangon of a son who lost his mother and set up his mom's dream of a food business, particularly this very delicious back ribs, nakakagutom. This pandemic made us realize that people are innately good, generous, and compassionate. The many news coverages I've had where we feature the poor and lowly situation a lot of people are in because of this pandemic, and then the sudden pouring of help and support are but testaments to how giving or magnanimous people can be. Lahat ito nakita ko sa pagko-cover ko. When I featured a shoemaker who just lives in his pedicab parked along a street in Manila together with his 2 dogs, people started coming over to send food and help to him. Some even offered a job for him. Donations, prayers, and encouragement also came flooding for a 14-year-old boy with a rare cancer after featuring him on 24 Oras. And then there is the story of Jonel, or ang batang pesonet. His photo went viral because he was seen at an internet shop beyond curfew hours during the lockdown. The one who took his photo thought that he was just playing video games and wanted to stop him. But he was moved with pity when he saw the child having difficulty enrolling himself to school because he couldn't comprehend the instructions in English. After watching him, many donated gadgets for Jonel, and some English teachers also published an English workbook to help Jonel and those like him to understand English easily. A father-son virtual reunion made possible after I did a story on Rey Solas, doing all his best to enroll his child to school, even if they are very poor and just live in a kariton. During the time I interviewed him, I didn't have any idea that his parents and whole family in Palawan have been looking for him for 10 years now and thought that he was already dead. After seeing him on TV, the family found a way to reach me and asked for Ray's whereabouts. Sinamahan ko sila, yung mga relatives niya dito sa Maynila, to where I found Ray and made him also talk to his family in Palawan through video chat. His father kept on crying because of his happiness to see again after so many years his lost son. It was a very timely feature during Father's Day and also a reminder of the biblical story, The Prodigal Son. I could go on and on sharing stories of hope and inspiration in the midst of this pandemic because there are just so many. Ito yung mga pambreak natin sa bad news eh. Kaya ito rin yung mga pinipiling magagandang storya na sa gitna ng mga malalaking, masasakit at tragic na mga storya, pinapalabas natin itong mga magaganda, mga nakaka-inspire at talagang nakakabuhay ng loob na talagang magpatuloy sa buhay. Ito yung mga storya na isinasama rin namin para marami ang ma-inspire na bumangon din at magpatuloy sa buhay. We also say that this pandemic has brought upon us evil and craziness, but this is the same pandemic that made us step back a bit and let nature breathe again. Di ba sinasabi natin, pinapakita rin natin sa balita na parang nagliwanag yung kalangitan dahil wala na halos pollution. Nung tumigil yung mga industriya, yung mga trabaho, wala masyadong lumalabas, wala masyadong usok, pollution, gumanda rin yung kalangitan natin. So we let the nature breathe again and let God lead the way. We may not be able to go out or move around because of lockdowns, but this gave us a chance to be locked down with our families and spend more quality time with them. And just as when we were all trying to recover from everything, this series of typhoons, Quinta, Rolly, Shoni, Tonyo, and Ulysses came, all with different degrees of strength and gustiness. What was apparent, though, was how super typhoons Rolly and Ulysses ravaged a large part of Luzon, leaving a lot of deaths and destruction of properties. It is truly hard to make sense of all these. But what is certain is that all these calamities, as well as the pandemic, allowed us to see the good in every bad situation, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to having the right perspective, positive attitude, and faith in God. Lahat to nakikita natin sa balita, na sa kabila at sa gitna ng kasamaan, sa mga trahedya na nagaganap, merong magaganda pa rin na lumalabas out of it. Now it's just 15 days before Christmas and 21 days before the year ends. We continue to cover. We continue to deliver news with no holidays. Ganun ang buhay sa media. Pero paano nga ba namin nabubuo ang istorya? Ang dami kong mga istorya na binanggit sa inyo kanina. Kahapon, ang assignment ko pumunta sa barangay na may pinakamaraming naitalang COVID cases para sa barangay solidarity trial for COVID vaccine. Napaisip ako kasi pinapupunta na ako sa lugar na puntahan ko raw yung may pinakamaraming COVID cases. So tanong ko, normal na ba ang lahat? Kung dati bawal kaming pumunta sa mga lugar na maraming kaso ng COVID, ngayon pinasusugod na ako doon. Pero syempre, nandun pa rin yung patuloy na pagpapaalala ng pag-iingat. Sabi sa akin, siguraduhin ko lang na susundin ko yung lahat ng health protocols, magsuot ng face mask, face shield, at sundin ang physical distancing. Bawal pa rin, syempre, sa loob ng ospital. May guidelines kami na wag kami munang papasok sa mga ospital. Hanggat maaari sa open space lamang. Kahit mga nag-i-interview na ako at sila yung mga nasa loob ng tahanan nila, hanggat maaari, pakikiusapan ko na lumabas na lang sila muna. So, paano namin ginagawa ang storya? Normally, may assignment kami. Pero pwede rin kaming mag-pitch ng story. Gaya nung kanina na binanggit ko na yung reunion ng tatay at ng anak niya na akala niya 10 taon nang hindi niya nakikita, akala niya patay na. Pinitch ko yun dun sa news desk namin dahil nga hinanap ako at gusto nilang makita yung anak. So, binanggit ko sa opisina na maganda tong story at nagustuhan naman nila. Marami ring mga iba pang mga storya na dahil kami yung lumalabas, may mga lumalapit sa amin, pwedeng mag-suggest sila na story at pag sa tingin namin ay maganda at makabuluhan at pwede itong makatulong sa publiko, we will pitch the story. So normally ako, dahil may unang hirit ako, maghahanda ako, pagkatapos ng unang hirit, maghahanda ako para lumabas na sa field. Tapos, tatawagan ko yung mga dapat kong ma-interview dahil hindi naman pwedeng sasabihin ko lang lahat ng storya without any sources. So, kailangan makahanap ako ng mai-interview ko. At pagkatapos nung mag-interview, syempre, i-cover ko hanggang sa lahat, isusulat ko na kung ano yung mga na-cover ko. Kailangan kong hanapin sila, kung nasan sila. So, kailangan kong puntahan. At kailangan kong balansehin. Halimbawa, pinuntahan ko yung barangay kahapon, 699 sa Malate, Maynila dahil nga yun yung isa sa mga mapapasama sa barangay solidarity trial at yun din ang isa sa may pinakamaraming cases ng COVID. So, kailangan ko siyang puntahan. Pero pagdating ko doon, hindi pa alam ng barangay captain. So, tinanong ko ano yung mga paghahanda na lang nila ng gagawin. So, yun yung naging laman ng interview ko sa kanya. And then, later on, kailangan kong tanungin bakit hindi alam ng mismong barangay samantalang inanunsyo na sa publiko na kasama sila sa barangay solidarity trial. So, kailangan kong balansehin. Hinanap ko yung DOH pero hindi raw sa kanila yon. So, ang sinabi nila sa DOST. So, kailangan kong hanapin yung DOST. Dahil ngayon may pandemya, karaniwan pupuntahan mo yung i-interviewin mo. Pero dahil may pandemic, most of these sources, they would just wish to be interviewed via phone patch or via Zoom or online. So kung ano yung mas comfortable sila, hindi naman natin pwedeng ipilit na puntahan natin face-to-face. So kung ano yung mas gusto nila, we will agree. So pagkatapos ma-interview at maisulat ko na lahat ng mga elements, or makumpleto ko lahat ng elements, isusulat ko na yung storya. Ako rin yung nasusulat kung ano yung ilalabas namin sa ere. Pagkatapos isasubmit namin sa opisina, it passes through different layers of checking para to make sure that what we are going to report is factual. Tapos kapag naibalik na sa akin, normally wala namang mga changes yan unless merong mga facts na kailangan idagdag or baguhin. Pero normally, kung ano yung sinulat mo, papadala, ibabalik sa'yo. And then we edit outside. Noon, nung wala pang pandemic, we go back to the newsroom para doon kami mag-edit together with the editors there. Pero ngayon, dahil meron ng pandemic, ginawa ng division yung aming newsroom. So yung lahat ng mga pumapasok sa opisina at hindi nag-field ay doon sila pwedeng pumasok sa newsroom. Pero kaming mga lumalabas sa field every day ay hanggang labas lang din kami. Hindi rin kami pwedeng pumasok sa loob ng newsroom. So kung napansin nyo, kahit na sa unang hirit, kung nakakapanood yung ilan sa inyo, dati nasa loob kami ng studio, ako tsaka si Ivan, pero dahil field reporters din kami, hindi na kami pumapasok dun sa loob ng studio para maiwasan din yung cross-transmission. So hanggang dun lang kami sa gazebo lahat ng mga field reporters na nag-a-anchor hanggang gazebo lang. Tapos lahat ng mga anchors na nag-a-anchor lang din sila, hindi sila nag-field report. Doon sila pwede sa loob ng studio. So, since the lockdown, hindi na ako nakabalik sa loob ng newsroom or sa studio. Lagi lang kaming nasa labas. Ito yung buhay namin. Pero okay lang, nakaka-adjust para lang maihatid namin sa inyo yung mga balita. Dahil ang mahalaga naman yung maihatid namin sa inyo yung balita. So mag-e-edit kami sa field hanggang sa umeres siya. Tapos kinabukasan, it's another day, it's another story to cover. So sa ngayon, mas nabibigyan linaw na yung nature ng sakit. Unti-unti na nating nakikita na nagkakaroon ng development yung mga vaccines. At dahil sa patuloy na pagbabalita, nabibigyan linaw din yung kaalamang ito sa publiko. Unti-unti napapawi yung takot natin. As a matter of fact, minsan tinatawanan na lang natin pero kailangan seryosohin natin. Every time na magko-cover kami sa Divisoria, sa matataong lugar, kahit na ganong katindi yung pagpapaalala ng mga social distancing and health protocols, talagang ang mga tao parang nasanay na ata, na parang wala na silang takot sa pandemic. Pero gusto nating mabawasan yung takot na nararamdaman natin sa pamamagitan ng impormasyon na naibibigay natin sa kanila. Pero wag nating baliwalain yung mga health protocols. Kasi kahit na alam na natin kahit papano yung nature ng pandemic, ng sakit, kailangan sundin pa rin natin yung mga protocols na kailangan nating sundin dahil ito pa rin ang magbibigay sa atin ng kaligtasan. Kahit nga sinasabi na meron ng vaccine, hindi pa rin automatic na magpo-produce kagad ng antibodies dun sa sakit na yon. So kailangan pa rin nating sundin. At yun yung paulit-ulit natin sinasabi, pinapaalala, hindi kami nagsasawang magpaalala sa pamamagitan ng pagbabalita. At kahit na anong mangyari, patuloy kaming mananatili rito. Ito yung nature ng trabaho namin. Ito yung sinumpaan naming gawin bilang pagsiservisyo sa publiko. Na mananatili kami rito, hindi lang hanggang sa mapagtagumpayan na natin ang pandemyang ito, kundi hanggang sa kailangan ng mga tao na marinig ang mga istorya at mga balitang ito kahit pa hanggang sa katapusan na ng mundo. Maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig sa aking storya. Sana ay may natutunan po kayo.
Maraming salamat po, Miss Maris. Palakpakan naman natin mga ka-Jorno.
Thank you so much, Miss Maris. So, ang dami nating mapupulot from Miss Maris talk, no? Ikaw, partner, anong mga takeaways mo?
Ang tumatak sa akin yung sinabi ni Miss Maris na hindi nala-lockdown ang balita. Hindi siya titigil na kahit matigil man yung mundo, no, parang tumigil ang mundo na itong nakaraang 8 buwan, hindi natitigil ang pagbibigay ng balita. Kaya Miss Maris, may gusto din po kaming batiin sa inyo. Happy anniversary po sa inyo ni Miss Annie, Mr. Rafi!
Thank you so much. Showbiz,
Last year po kasama po namin si Mr. Rafi sa journalism seminar. Sana po sa susunod, kasama namin kayong dalawa.
Oh, wow, pwede.
Happy anniversary po ulit.
Happy anniversary, Miss Maris and Mr. Rafi.
Ma'am Dian, thank you.
Thank you
Ayan,
po, Miss Maris. Yeah.
Salamat,
So
ma'am.
yan mga ka-Jorno, bukas ng ating open forum para tanungin natin si Miss Maris kung meron ba tayong nais linawin o meron tayong mga katanungan. At isa nga itong opportunity rin para makausap natin si Miss Maris kasi minsan natin siya makasama eh. Hello po. Nag-a-adore. So ayan po. Isa po sa mga tanong Miss Maris mula po kay Amanda Hernandez. Hindi po ba kayo natakot o nagdalawang isip na baka after ng pagkuha ng pabalita o pag-check dun sa place na maraming cases ng COVID ay magkaroon po kayo ng mismong sakit din? Ayun naman po na gagawin yung best ninyo. Gusto ko lang po malaman yung feeling ninyo. Sabi po ni Amanda Hernandez.
Alam mo, sa totoo, nandun pa rin naman yung kaba, pero hindi naman ito pipigil sa amin para lumabas at gawin pa rin yung trabaho namin. Sa totoo, na-divide yung namin, yung mga reporters dun sa mga work from home, tsaka yung mga patuloy pa rin na mag-field, mag-cover sa field. So isa ako, tsaka actually kami ni Rafi, tsaka yung iba pa namin mga kasama, na nakikita nyo nagla-live sa labas, kami yung mga pinili namin na sige, lalabas kami. patuloy pa rin kaming maghahanap ng balita sa labas. Dun sa mga pagkakataon na nakikita nyo na nagre-report ako from home or nasa bahay lang ako, yun yung mga panahon na yung mga kailangan kong interviewin, ayaw magpa-interview ng face-to-face. So wala akong choice kundi magstay ako sa bahay para maganda yung signal at ma-record ko siya via Zoom. So sa bahay ako noon. Pero most of the time, we go out. Nandun ang kaba, pero hindi naman ako talaga natatakot para lumabas pa rin at ihatid sa inyo yung balita. Sa totoo lang, ang kailangan lang naman talaga, dahil unti-unti na nating nalalaman yung mga nature nga ng disease, 'di ba? Nitong ng virus. Ang kailangan lang talaga sundin natin yung mga dapat na pag-iingat, yung health protocols, magsuot ng face mask lagi, magsuot ng face shield, tsaka yung i-keep yung social or yung physical distancing. Tapos kapag dating sa bahay, talagang maghugas, maligo, yung maglinis, mag-disinfect para masigurong wala kang sakit. And sa totoo lang, mula nung nag-lockdown ay nakalimang test na ako sa COVID. 2 rapid antigen at 3 swab test na ako dahil requirement siya sa aming mga coverages kung minsan. Thank God, it's always negative. Pero yun nga, kailangan talaga mag-ingat pa rin. So nandun yung kaba, pero pag nag-iingat naman at nagdadasal, lagi na ako nagdadasal para hindi kami matamaan ng virus. Pero may mga times na rin na talagang na-quarantine na rin ako, na-quarantine din si Rafi, yung marami sa amin na reporters sa quarantine kasi yung mga naging close contact namin nagpositibo sa COVID. Pero thank God, hindi pa naman kami tinatamaan. Sana hindi talaga. Wag na.
Ayan. Thank you so much po, Miss Maris. And we have another question from Miss Joya de Asis. Sabi niya po, do you see this news cycle changing anytime soon? Ayan. Hashtag Ask Maris.
Actually, parang nagbago na siya. Parang dati kasi talagang kailangan yung magagandang mga kuha, talagang quality na videos, tsaka talagang kailangan puntahan mo. May mga times na parang the night before, sasabihan ka, kailangan pumunta ng Mindanao, kailangan pumunta ng Visayas, kung nasaan nangyayari yung balita. Ngayon, dahil sa pandemic, maraming nabago. Pwede na kahit na yung quality lang ng mga online na interviews, 'di ba? Minsan medyo hazy, minsan na tumitigil yung naghahang kasi yung internet medyo bumabagal. Pero tinatanggap yan ngayon dahil nga ganito na yung natin ganito yung sistema natin ngayon. Kailangan nating tanggapin na pwedeng via phone patch muna, via Zoom or via online interviews muna para hindi tayo maging instrumento sa pagpapakalat ng COVID. At kung hindi naman komportable yung interview natin, ba't natin ipipilit, 'di ba? Na puntahan siya face to face. So, marami nang nabago dito sa sistema ng pagbabalita. At least yun yung mga technical stuff and mga physical na talagang nakikita natin na ilan sa mga binago nitong pandemic na ito.
Ayan. Thank you so much po, Miss Maris. I think there is another question, partner.
Mm-hmm.
Sige ho. Basahin po natin ang huli sa mga question. Good morning, Miss Maris, mula po kay JB Soliman Santiago. Ano pong ma-advise nyo sa mga aspiring journalists na nahihirapan sa paghahanap ng interviewees, especially kung sila lang yung nag-iisa? At ang pinaka-importante gawaan ng pahayag, but suddenly, nasabihin nila na camera shy sila o hindi sila pwede magpa-interview kahit face-to-face man o virtual.
Mm-hmm. Alam mo, hanggang ngayon, may mga situations pa rin na talagang nahihirapan pa rin ako na maka-interview. Ang ginagawa ko, humahanap ako ng paraan. Halimbawa, una kapag hindi mo mahanap yung mga kailangan interviewin. Of course, meron kaming parang listahan sa opisina ng mga contact numbers. Yun yung isa sa mga tulong na pwede mo makuha from the desk. They will help you with the contact numbers. Number 2, yung mga kapwa mo reporter, baka may mga na-interview na sila in the past na pwedeng maibigay nila sa iyo yung contact. Number 3, ang dami na sa social media ngayon. Si Rafi, ang galing maghanap sa ganyan. Yung mga tipong kailangan mo maghanap ng nurse sa UK. O di ba parang paano ka makakahanap ng contact number ng tao na nasa UK? Hindi naman natin to kilala. So sa social media, meron mga organizations like halimbawa mga nurses, Filipino nurses of United Kingdom. So minsan makakahanap ka ng mga grupo sa mga social media para kapag halimbawa i-try mo lang silang i-message kahit wala kang contact number. Dati talaga kailangan may contact number ako, pero ngayon kahit na i-message mo na lang sila sa Messenger or ma-chat mo lang sila somewhere, sumasagot sila at makakahanap ka ng paraan. Ngayon kung talagang halimbawa nahanap mo na sila, ayaw nilang magpa-interview, ang ginagawa ko, hahanap ako ng iba pang mga possible na pwedeng ma-interview na kapalit nila. Kung talagang kailangan. O kaya hahanap ako ng way na halimbawa close to them para kumbinsin sila. Kasi minsan sasabihin ko, hindi kasi ako kilala personally nitong taong to. So baka hindi madaling makuha yung trust na lalo na kapag hindi naman nanonood ng balita, 'di ba? Parang madali kasing maka-interview kapag halimbawa regular or avid viewer ng balita yung taong i-interviewin mo. At least kahit papaano, alam nila yung paraan mo ng pagtatrabaho, kilala ka nila. Pero may mga iba na hindi rin sila nanonood ng balita. So wala ka talaga sa radar nila. And hindi mo naman agad-agad na parang just because you introduce yourself and you tell them that I'm from GMA7 for example, or I'm from this particular network, hindi naman ganun kadali na makuha yung nila, yung tiwala nila. So lalo na pag controversial yung mga storya na gagawin mo, 'di ba? Mahirap. So it takes time to convince them. Hindi necessarily kailangan ngayon mapilit kita ngayon din agad ma-interview kita. Minsan parang yung kailangan mong ligawan. Parang sa pag-ibig, kailangan mong suyuin para makumbinsi mo siya na mapapayag. Hindi mo kailangan gawin agad-agad na ngayon, mapapayag mo siya. Minsan it takes weeks o kaya months para mapapayag siya. O syempre sasabihin nyo, paano yan? Wala na yung balita, 'di ba? Tapos na. Kasi ang balita napapanis. Paano kung halimbawa yung ibang mga balita naglalas ng 1 week, yung ibang balita 2 weeks, pero yung ibang balita parang mabilis lang. Investment na lang 'yon, kumbaga. Bakit mo siya kailangan suyuin ng days, weeks, or even months? Dahil kailangan mong makuha yung tiwala niya. So investment mo ngayon. Ngayon, hindi mo siya nakuha, pero later on, kapag halimbawa nakilala ka na niya, this person finds you very persistent and nakita niya na mapapagkatiwalaan ka pala kasi hindi ka naglabas ng bagay na porke hindi siya pumayag, hindi mo naman siya siniraan dahil talagang hindi pa lang siya handa, 'di ba? Bibigyan mo siya ng time para maging handa siya. Sa mga situations, may mga naririnig kayo na sinusubukan pa naming kunan ng pahayag itong taong to, pero hindi pa siya sumasagot sa aming mga tawag. O yun, di ba, sa aming mga request for interview. Pwede mong sabihin kasi yun, kapag talagang yung storya very urgent that needs to be aired right away, pwede mong sabihin yung mga ganung bagay. Pero in the future, meron at merong susulpot ulit na storya na posibleng kakailanganin mo ulit tong taong to. At nakapag-invest ka na sa kanya. Kasi ngayon pa lang halimbawa, sinusubukan mo na siyang suyuin, ma-interview, ayaw pa niyang pumayag. Later on, parang hindi naman sa makukulitan, pero pwedeng makukulitan din siya sa'yo. And then eventually, parang papayag na siya dahil, very persistent tong taong to. Normally, it works for me kapag ganun. Kapag halimbawa, pinapaliwanag mo bakit kailangan sumagot kayo. Kailangan lang ma-explain ng mabuti. Kung halimbawa, makakasira sa reputation niya, sabihin mo, hindi po ba mas maganda kung kayo mismo ang magpaliwanag para mabahagi ninyo ang inyong saloobin, ang inyong side para hindi naman kayo makawawa at hindi naman kayo madehado. This is a platform for you to balance things out at linawin yung mga bagay na dapat bigyang linaw. Dahil otherwise, kung hindi po kayo magsasalita, posibleng talagang naano na kayo, na-judge na kayo publicly in the eyes of the public kasi sa media lumabas na, 'di ba? So minsan it also encourages them kasi parang kapag halimbawa may kabilang side tapos hindi nila sinabi yung side nila o parang dehado nga naman sila. So minsan yung iba kahit na hindi sila nagpa-on cam, maglalabas naman sila ng statement. So that is enough kapag halimbawa naglabas sila ng statement kasi minsan may mga ibang tao talaga na hindi mo mapipilit na lumabas on cam kasi talagang sadyang mahiyain sila at hindi sila mga on cam persons. So the least that you can do is to encourage them to release a statement para meron silang side of the story. So lahat talaga ng iba't ibang paraan gagawin mo para makumbinse itong taong to na mapasagot dun sa mga storya na kailangan mo. Sa tingin ko, what also works is for you not to be antagonistic. Kasi kapag halimbawa, naging antagonistic ka, parang mas lalong, paano kanila pagkakatiwalaan? Kasi galit ka kagad sa kanila or parang, di ba, parang binlockmail mo na sila. So parang it also pays to be nice, to be patient and to be persistent sa mga ganitong pagkakataon. Dahil isa talaga sa mga pinaka-challenging pa rin hanggang ngayon in my 18 years of being a reporter is to convince people who don't want to be interviewed to be interviewed. Diba? Yun yung isa sa pinakamahirap pa rin para sa akin.
Ayan. So, liligawan pala muna dapat. Susuyuin at kukunin ang tiwala.
Thank you, Miss Maris.
And so, we have here one last question from our Zoom chat box from Miss Agnes Francisco. Sabi po niya dito, one of the highly expected ethical practices of journalists is to seek truth and report it. Along this line, a reporter needs to minimize harm on persons as subject of the news report. My question is, how do you strike a balance between being truthful in your news report and protecting the rights of your subject? Say a big personality involved in a very big controversy.
By being balanced. Alam mo, at the end of the day, kailangan mong balansehin. Ang sinasabi mo ba na protecting the rights of this person, para maprotektahan siya, hindi mo ilalabas yung katotohanan? Yun ba yung ibig niyang sabihin na kailangan, para maprotektahan ko yung karapatan nitong taong to, ay wag ko na lang ilabas yung balita? Parang ganun ba? Did I take the question correctly? Kasi parang sa tingin ko, kung ano ang pinaka makaka-benefit. Halimbawa, you're a public personality, 'di ba? You're a politician. Responsibilidad mo na managot sa publiko. Kung meron kang kontrobersya, kung meron kang anomalyang ginawa, of course, yes, we will respect your right to privacy and we will respect your right to just keep quiet, pero kailangan din naming responsibilidad din naming ilabas yung katotohanan. And why so? Because una, public figure ka, you are a politician, meron kang pananagutan sa publiko, meron kang pananagutan sa constituents mo. Kailangan mong sagutin to. Ngayon, for example, ano ba ang mas nakakabuti for the greater good, for public interest? Yun din yung kailangan din manaig. And sa lahat ng pagkakataon, kailangan manaig ang katotohanan. So ngayon, anong katotohanan? Kailangan ilabas kung talagang may mga ebidensya tong ilalabas naming expose. For example, tong storyang to, talagang lahat nandyan yung ebidensya. Bakit hindi pwedeng ilabas, 'di ba? Just to protect the rights of this person. Para maprotektahan ka rin at para marespeto rin namin yung karapatan mo, bibigyan ka namin ng pagkakataon para ilabas yung inyong side. Sagutin yung mga alegasyon at alegasyon ng anomalya o mga alegasyon na ipinupukol sa'yo, sagutin nyo para mabigyan kayo ng pagkakataon na mabalanse yung mga bagay-bagay. And by that, I believe that we are also respecting the right of this person to um, at least to the truth. Kasi, syempre, paano mo may palalabas yung katotohanan kung tatahimik ka lang, 'di ba? Hindi lalabas yung sa tingin ko kasi primary talaga yung katotohanan. Pero gusto ko kasing maintindihan yung question nung last question kung yun ba yung ibig niyang sabihin kung ito ba ay protecting the right of the person by just concealing the truth. Kasi yun nga, parang para sa akin, pinakamananaig pa rin yung katotohanan. Hindi mo tatapakan yung karapatan nila by just telling the story without their side. Mas mapopromote mo at mas mapapangalagaan mo yung karapatan din nila dahil nga meron ng mga aligasyon laban sa kanya, mapoprotektahan mo rin yung karapatan niya by asking this person and allowing this person to also air their side to balance everything out. Yun yung laging nagiging panuntunan namin sa pagbabalita para parang at the end of the day, we hold on to the truth. Kailangan manaig at mangibabaw yung katotohanan.
Ayan, thank you so much. Question part.
Maraming salamat po, Miss Maris. At tumatak talaga sa akin yung kailangan sa dulo, mananaig ang katotohanan.
Right.
Ayan.
So,
Para po sa inyong certificate, inaalay po namin sa inyo sa bilang pasasalamat sa pakikisama sa amin sa pagbabahagi ng iyong kaalaman. Ethel?
Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Miss Maris Umali for being the keynote speaker in the 20th Journalism Seminar entitled Sa True Lang, Mga Istoryang Pang-News at Hindi Fake, presented this 10th of December 2020, signed by the following: Miss Alexandra Javier Puyo, the overall coordinator, Mr. Renz Kevin Alcazar, the journalism seminar advisor, Professor Ruby A. Manaig, the program coordinator, Professor Rosa R. Hernandez, our department chair, and of course, Dr. Bettina Joyce P. Ilagan, our college dean.
Maraming salamat po. At inaanyahan po natin ang lahat na magbukas ng camera and para sa isang maksaysayan din na photo op with Miss Maris Umali.
Yes, minsan lang to.
Ayan, picture po tayo with Miss Maris Umali.
In a count of 3, ready na po ba? Open ang mga cameras.
Ayan.
Let's wait for the others. And, sige, gawin natin 5 counts, partner, para medyo mahaba-haba.
Sige.
5, so let's keep the day going, Enteng, because we have 2 more speakers to go, right? So mukhang wala pang aking partner. But our next topic, para ma-orient ang lahat, our next topic is equally interesting because we'll get to learn more about the situation of doing local journalism in our country amid the pandemic and stifled press freedom, di ba? Sa true na sa true, relate na relate tayo. Kamustahin naman natin ang mga sitwasyon in the regions. So, sino nga ba ang ating next speaker? Yan. So, our next speaker is the executive director of and the trustee at the Philippine Press Institute, also known as the National Association of Newspapers, considered as the oldest professional media organization in the country. He also heads the training operations and special projects of the PTI. He wears several hats: a media practitioner, lecturer, motivational speaker, events organizer, host, journalism trainer, writer, editor, and the media literacy resource person. He was conferred in September 2017 as a fellow in journalism, the first such by the Royal Institute Singapore, an organization of professionals from various fields which also accredits and recognizes a professional's body of work and vast experience in his or her field. So ano pa ba ang tungkol sa ating guest speaker partner?
Nako, bigatin nga rin ang ating next speaker. Dahil bukod sa inyong mga nabanggit, partner, babahagi niya ngayong araw patungkol sa media issues, press freedom, communication, media literacy, social media disinformation, at mabanggit lang natin sa usaping press freedom, gusto ko lang din ipagdiwang o batiin ang lahat na International Human Rights Day po ngayong araw na ito. Ito po ay malaking issue. We welcome Mr. Aliel Sebellino.
Hello, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. How's everyone? I hope you're all safe wherever you are. Shout out to Dean Ilagan and Professor Kevin. Thanks for inviting me. I just had a very late international webinar just this morning that ended at 3 in the morning. It was such a significant experience. I was with other international experts. I was the youngest representing the Philippines, but the others were from other universities. So there was somebody from Texas, somebody from Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal, and the one from Bangladesh. Because Bangladesh was the host of the international webinar. I just would like to share, it's good that one of the hosts mentioned that it is International Human Rights Day. If you know me very well on social media, in my Facebook, I am so critical just about everything. So I posted about, because today's International Human Rights Day, I posted about good governance is defined or can be defined by how it actually values or promotes human rights, di ba? Or even promotes democracy. So may kinalaman itong mga bagay-bagay ngayon sa usapin natin about press freedom, about how community press contributes to preserving or protecting democracy, and in turn, or eventually contributes to community building and nation building. So just imagine a marginalized sector in the media industry, such as the community press, contributing to significant discourses. I would like to, bibilisan ko kasi I only have like under 30 minutes to do everything, including the Q&A. So meron akong screen share of my slides. Can somebody assist me? Okay, wait. Yun na natin. What do I do? Desktop. Desktop ba? Is it supposed to be screen share? Screen share ba? Share.
Kaya na po, sir.
Nandiyan na? Okay, good.
Andito na pa.
Okay. Ako lang naman magkiklik.
Thank you, sir.
No? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
I am so excited about the topic kasi sa true lang, sa totoo lang, yung title na true lang, medyo, di ba ang dating millennial kasi you're all millennials. Ako, phillennial ako. Millennial feeling millennial, di ba? So, my first question is, saan ba yun? Saan ba yung turn? Kayo na lang mag-manipulate ng slides ko?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige, what I want you to do at first now is to show all your faces on camera. Please turn on your camera while muting your video. Sige, I want to see all those beautiful smiles. Kasi di ba pandemic ito, yung human connectivity, we were talking about early this morning, from 12 midnight to dawn, yung sinasabing international webinar, we're talking about human connectivity and human connection. Gone are the days when we all want to feel the warmth after 9 months of lockdown, quarantines plural, kasi ang dami natin pinagdaanan ng quarantines. Di ba? It's just so, first, it's unnerving, but how we wish everyone can go back to all those little conveniences that we were able to experience in the past normal, right? Di ba? So, sino ang nakatira sa Cavite? Just raise your hands. Sino? Ilan ba sila? Can somebody count kung ilan? Ilan? Can the host count kung ilan? Sige. Okay. Do you know?
Sige, pabibilangin natin, sir.
Oh, sige.
Sir Ariel, we lost
Sir,
your video.
Okay. Sorry.
Turn it off. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oo, thank you. Okay, ilan daw?
We have 44 participants here in the meeting room, Sir Ariel, and
Who
most
raised?
and all of us come from Cavite.
Yeah, okay. Where am I right now? I live in Imus, in Buhay na Tubig. Okay. So, do you know of any local paper? Just raise your hands or say yes or no, probably. Do you know of any local paper in Imus or anywhere in Cavite? Basta I leave it to you. Just think about it if you know or if you knew. What was the last local paper you read or you read? Hala, did you hear me?
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ano,
And
wala
may
ako.
mga sumasagot po mula kay
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
Miss Lisette at ating professor in journalism.
Okay.
Meron po tayong Indang Ahoy, isa sa mga local newspaper sa Indang.
Okay. I want a student to answer me now. Please unmute yourself. What was the last local paper you read? Tingnan natin kung meron man. Anybody? Quick lang.
Ayan. We encourage the students, no, ating mga ka-journal to participate.
Sige, very quickly. Sorry. Just shout it out.
Ayan.
Shout it out.
Ako na lang muna, sir, mula
Sige,
sa Dasmariñas, Heraldo Filipino.
Okay.
Isa sa mga local newspaper doon.
Heraldo Philip. Isn't that a university-based newspaper? Community newspaper? No, it's really
Oo nga
a
pala
community newspaper.
maaari dahil connect
Yeah.
rin siya sa De La Salle.
Yeah, they actually one of the staff actually interviewed me. Well, occasionally. Anyway, good that you read Heraldo Filipino. What do you most likely see on the front page of a local paper? These are things I want you to think about without answering me right now. Ano ang una nakikita nyo sa front page, sa inside pages? It's important that we're able to differentiate kung ano yung nakikita natin sa local papers or community newspapers compared to the big papers in Metro Manila or any newspapers na hindi siya so-called mainstream. Okay, what about the ads? Anong mga ads na nakikita ninyo? Are these local ads? Are big corporations advertising in the local paper? Kailangan suriin natin yung elemento na ito. May kinalaman ito, may patungkol ito in my proceeding on my next slides. Okay, what's your first impression of a tabloid? Di ba meron tayong perception na pag tabloid, ay, tabloid yan eh. Parang, tabloid. For all we know, because your teachers told you, di ba? Alam ko kasi tinuturo yan. Tabloid means the size itself and can also be referring to the substance itself or the content, correct? Not because dahil tabloid siya, parang gano'n na, di ba? Parang you shun or you shut it out, di ba? Ayaw nyo nang basahin kasi tabloid na. So, mayroong discrimination doon. How many died? Ito, pang ano na to ha, pang last question ko. How many died in the infamous Ampatuan Massacre? Sige, I want an answer. I want a voice to be heard right now. Ilan ang total? Sige nga.
58 po at 32 ang ating journalist.
Oo. Sana hindi na yung host yung sumasagot, no? Pero pa bang iba? Okay, anyway, this is a very good answer. No, I'm just trying to... Did you get my point? Why I am asking these questions? Kasi merong kinalaman ito sa tinatawag nating community newspapers. Okay? Next slide, please. 58, lahat, ang 32 journalists ang namamatay. Next question, importante pala. Sa tingin niyo ba resolved na yung kaso? Okay na dahil merong verdict promulgation? Ha? Sa tingin niyo? Hindi. UNESCO considered or labeled it as an unresolved case. Bakit? Di ba excited tayo? Ay, naku, celebratory mood tayo. Nung kailan? December 19 or 18 yun, di ba? When the judge actually promulgated the guilty verdict. Pero, anong status yun ngayon? Marami pa rin mga witnesses that are marami pa rin perpetrators who are at large. Correct? Tapos, di ba, meron ibang mga witnesses, wala na. Tapos, pwede pa siyang i-appeal. So, hindi pa siya resolved. It's a continuing journey and struggle to find justice and truth for all those victims, including the families of the victims, insofar as press freedom is concerned. And you're also talking about the victims na mga community journalists. Just imagine the amount of time they have to wait for the guilty verdict, pero hindi pa pala tapos. Anyway, anong tinatawag na, sa totoo lang, anong tinatawag natin na community newspapers or community journalism? Sinabi ko na kanina, it is the most marginalized segment in the media industry. Madaming newspapers, according to the Philippine Information Agency, I got a copy of the media fact book of PIA many years back, pero wala silang bago. As part of the PPA research, there are hundreds and hundreds of printed materials in the country. Di ba? Iba pa rin yung consider or just imagine, iba pa yung nag-crop up pag malapit na yung election, obviously, for obvious reasons. Tapos, nawawala siya after elections. What does that tell you? Diba? Bakit nawawala after elections? Tapos, nandyan lang siya pag elections. So, kayo bahala mag-isip nun. It is the most vulnerable. I mentioned about Ampatuan Massacre because that is the most horrible an example of a gross case of one time, the single case in the history of the Philippines na maraming namatay. Correct? Bakit ang daming namatay na journalists? Because they are most vulnerable. Ito yung walang pupunta sa isang biyahe, walang pagkain, o walang dalang pera, walang pang-communicate, o buhay pa ako, just check me out. Nobody's checking on them. Tapos, walang pamasahe. Tapos, pag bago umuwi, kailangan ng pera kasi they need to bring food on the table for their families. Pero saan nila kukunin yun? Siyempre, manghihingi kung sinong kinover nila sa politician, di ba? Is that ethical? Meron bang support ang employment or management doon? Kawawa, di ba? Kaya they are so exposed to a lot of harassment and violence. Underpaid. How many are stringers among the community journalists? Tama ba yung under labor practice? Tama ba yung remuneration nila? Just imagine the meager amount of salary they are receiving, hindi nga monthly, hindi nga on a regular basis, di ba? Kung stringers or correspondents sa malalaking dyaryo, late pa silang bayaran. Just imagine, di ba? Yung struggling journalists natin the time of the pandemic, struggling na sila noon pa. And we kept on talking about welfare and security of media practitioners, hindi lang ng journalists, lahat ng media practitioners since time immemorial. Ganun pa rin yun. And they're most underappreciated. Pag sinabing, local journalist lang naman yan, mas gusto ko yung mga malalaki, yung mga sikat na nakikita ko sa TV. Just imagine, di ba, merong comparison amongst or between different platforms. Yung nasa legacy media, meaning, or the glamour media, the glamour of the TV, compared to, let's say, the faceless or the nameless journalist. Sabihin na natin, faceless na lang. Mas people tend to gravitate towards the celebrity status of journalists as seen on television. Diba? Pero dapat wala sanang, there's comparison technically of the content, of the visual appeal, etc. Pero dapat hindi siya kailangan i-relegate to the background. Kasi grabe pinagdadaanan ng community journalists natin. Mas mahirap, as I said. And they're very humble. Hindi nagko-complain sila. Pag binigyan ng assignment ng editor, ng publisher, itapon mo sa war-torn area, conflict-stricken area, pupunta yun doon. Pero dapat kailangan bumalik ng buhay and not be part of the statistics. Diba? They should not be the story themselves, but they should tell the stories when they come back. Diba, just imagine, hindi na nakabalik yung mga nag-cover sa kay Toto Magunda Dato dun sa Ampatuan, di ba? When he filed a certificate of candidacy for the elections that time. Tapos, they're often neglected in the spectrum of welfare and security, di ba? Pag sinabi natin, ito at least ngayon, ang dami ng media organizations alongside PTI and alongside other ally organizations that keep on talking about media and security na dapat nakatuon din doon labas ng Metro Manila. Kasi ang dami ng resources here eh. Pero ngayon kasi pandemic, not pantay-pantay, pero parehong pinagdadaanan na hirap. Pero in normal circumstances, mas mahirap yung nasa probinsya, yung outside Metro Manila. Kasi in terms of, let's say for example, how much of the advertising, the pie of advertising they're getting, di ba sobrang liit? And that, like, they're scrambling for the local advertising. So kung yung mga nasa, ako, lagi kong sinasabi when I do my lecture, ito ethics naman ito, sabi ko, mahirap pag-usapan yung ethics pag kumakalam yung sikmura. Right, professors? Right, Dean? Di ba? Ang hirap eh. Pag nasa ano ka na, when you're faced with the circumstances, tsaka nandun ka na sa sitwasyon, maisip mo pa ba yung ethics? Pero not because it's so hard to think about it. If you're drawn, if you're there already in the situation, hindi mo na isipin yun. Dapat at the back of your mind, andun pa rin yung ethics because that's what makes us credible. What makes the journalist that defines his or her integrity, di ba? So pero syempre pag-iisipan natin na ano ba yung mga journalists in Metro Manila, the NCR? Di ba? Paano yung mga journalists na nasa baba? So ano was the definitive terms when you talk about ethics? Pareho. It just so happened the economics in journalism is not the same insofar as the spectrum of welfare and security is concerned. Next slide, please. But ito binanggit ko na how unfortunate the struggling journalists, committee journalists are, and how struggling the publisher, even the publishers struggling to survive during this pandemic. Mas mahirap pa compared to in the past normal, they're competing against each other. As I said, competing, scrambling with the meager pie of advertising locally. So pero just think about it. Sinabi ko na kanina ano yung mga hirap or even the downside of being a community journalist. Why do we have to appreciate them? Ano ang meron sila na you want to love them, you want to read them, you want to support them? Because they're very resilient. Resilient is a very overused word. It's an overused word. Pero pag resiliency lang namang pag-uusapan, di ba, resilient naman tayo lahat. Sabi nga, hanggang kailan ba natin gagamitin yung word na resilient? But just imagine the difficulties, the realities, the hard realities they're facing right now. Pero they're surviving because they're very resilient. Number two, less complaining in terms of work. Tinapon mo doon, as I said, di ba? Pag ikaw editor, publisher, matutuwa ka. Pero not because umuo siya ng umuo, ganun-ganun na lang. Di ba kailangan mo pa rin ingatan yung journalist mo na bumalik, di ba? Yung reporter mo. And then they're very enterprising compared to the parachute journalists. They're very enterprising. They know how to get their stories. They know how to hound stories. They know how to go after their subjects. Pag wala ito, di ba binanggit ni Maris kanina, you must strive in all aspects, kahit na mahirap. Iba't ibang paraan to get your story right, to get your story complete, and run after sources, authorities, traditional or otherwise. Sana wag i-focus na pag sumulat ng tayo, traditional sources ka agad eh. Go to the mayor, blah, 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 ito. Dapat you go to the second tier or level, which is, sino? Mga people on the ground. That's why it's community journalism, because you want to bring forth, you want to bring to the fore the voices of the unheard, the underreported, and not reported at all. And then more knowledgeable of local realities. They get the pulse of the community. Di ba? Compare mo dalawang journalists. Ito, nakatira in Cavite. Yung isa naman, nakatira, for example, in up north. Tapos, ipapadala mo yung somebody up north, a journalist dun sa local, di ba? Walang masama doon. What I'm saying is that, for the longest time, alam nila kung anong sitwasyon in the communities they are, they're involved, they belong, di ba? Na mouthpiece of the committee, binanggit ko na, how is it important to recognize community journalism? Because sila yung dapat na mouthpiece or boses ng mga marginalized. In civic journalism parlance ng TPI, ang civic journalism, ang bias niya, nasa community talaga. Hindi yung puro nasa first level lahat. Ito naman yung, especially the powers that be, they're always heard all the time. You see them on print, you see them on television, you hear them on radio, you read them on print. Diba? What about the smaller voices in the various communities na pinagsisilbihan dapat ng mga politicians, di ba? Some community journalism exactly does that service of bringing to the fore or lending that voice, rendering that voice so that they are heard by many, local and international. Tapos, isa barometer in terms of literacy. Di ba? Sa isang community, for example, in Imus, remember I asked about sino ba nagbabasa? Pag walang nagbabasa, because you know for a fact that there is a dwindling readership in the country, the culture of readership is evading all of us. Nobody goes to physical libraries. How many of you go to the physical libraries? All you have to do to get that information is go to virtual libraries, meaning online, internet, etc., etc. Pero, pag nagbasa ang tao, pag sinuportahan nila ang community newspaper, printed materials, whether mapamagazine, it tells you, it's a telltale sign that nagmamature yung isang komunidad, correct? Pag walang nagbabasa, it tells you something negative, na talagang, ay, where do people get the information from? Di ba? Bakit wala nagbabasa? Wala bang suporta ng mga stakeholders yun? Wala bang suporta ng academics? Di ba? Okay. It gives you a sense of belongingness and relatability. I told you about community journalism is able to feel the pulse of realities in the locality, di ba? Sila yung alam kung ano yung nangyayari on the ground. At sila yung nagbibigay ng kabuluhan sa mga issues, making sense of issues and all that matters in the community. How does it feel pag nabasa mo ang isang storya ng isang mahirap o ng isang tao na sa tingin mo katulad ng estado mo, pero nabasa mo, it gives you a sense of belongingness and relatability, correct? Di ba? Mas gusto mo magbasa. You'll always look forward to reading a paper that tells you about human lives, your colleagues, your workmates, your neighbors, di ba? Na andun sa komunidad mismo. So it tells you that that community journalism is able to make sense of somebody else's life, probably same as yours or different from yours. It gives you an insightful and incisive look at that kind of person or character, or even an event that's happening, a fiesta, for example. Diba? Local governance, for example, na different naman siya sa, let's say, city of Pasig or Manila, etc. Diba? Ang ginagalawan ng isang tao or ng komunidad sa ng mga residente sa isang community ay kino-cover ng community journalism kasi dapat ipaalam sa nagbabasa or sa mga tao na dapat nilang basahin yun because that is their story. That is their life being printed. And it's also aspirational. Having said that, di ba, the nobility of community journalism takes flight. Pag sinabi mong, bakit nga ba may community journalism? Why are the local journalists still there, staying on, doing their jobs, their most difficult times in the pandemic? Kasi binobosesa nila yung aspirations ng mga tao. The hopes and aspirations of the people that want quality of lives, that want to uplift everyone, that wants to take care of everybody. Di ba sabi nga natin in this pandemic, at any time in the history, ang crisis brings us closer to each other. Di ba? Gives us that sense of altruism. That gives us a sense of wanting to take care of each and every one of us. Di ba? That's exactly the point of the service of community journalism. Correct? Next slide, please. Bibilisan ko na to. Okay, the landscape then and now. Binanggit ko a bit of this from the very beginning. Now, as we talk about, as we're on the 9th or 10th month of the pandemic or quarantines, the most hard hit are community journalists in this pandemic. I don't know if you read the story based on what PPI, based on the data of PPI, at least, because one newspaper that closes is one too many. 12 or 13 newspapers or community newspapers closed or folded during the pandemic, but thank God, most of them came back already. What does that tell you? Everyone is caught off guard. Hindi natin alam, we're so ill-prepared. You can never be prepared for any eventuality. But then again, what does the pandemic tells us or gives us as insight, as a lesson? It makes us prepare for any eventuality. I'm not saying there's going to be another crisis, knock on wood, or a pandemic for that matter. But the thing is that with all these instruments or tools we are given today, as we do the introspection, alam na natin how to face the challenges, whether maliit or malaki. Correct? Imagine your community journalists or community newspapers striving at this point to survive because they want to serve the community. Still struggling remuneration-wise, mas pronounced. Sabi nga nila, bakit tinatawag na unprecedented? It's unprecedented because in a lifetime, you, for example, ako, this is my first pandemic experience, di ba? For other people, baka mas madami pa. Correct? Di ba? So, pag inisip mo, pagtapos na to, hopefully things get better or nicer when, the New Year's approaches, things get normal back to a kind of normalcy next year so that we experience the little conveniences that we sorely miss. But ito yung panahon na we have to recalibrate our movement, our functions as content providers, as academics like you guys, and as global citizens, not only parochially thinking about how you are as local citizens, but as global citizens of the world, because pandemic is just, everybody's being affected by it. And everything that is on hand needs to be appreciated, whether it's good or bad, di ba? So, victim of management abuse, unfair labor practice, andun na din yun. Ito ha, dapat malaman nyo. How much does a journalist earn? Not regularly. Pag ito yung X sa mga kinikita niya sa isang buwan, tapos malaman mo, ay, hindi pala to. By law, wala eh. Hindi siya sumusunod. Ang arrangement magiging, sige, you are a journalist, you write, you get your stories, submit your stories, you're paid for that. But to augment your income, pwede kang maglako ng dyaryo namin. You do marketing as well. I have a question on that line. Is that ethical? You're a journalist, you're a reporter, but you're allowed, you are, as imposed by the realities, you are forced to sell the paper on the marketing side. Is that ethical? Can anybody answer? Tama ba yun? Journalist ka pero pinagbibenta ka ng dyaryo para lang mapunuan yung sahod mo? Can anybody answer? Who wants to answer? Please unmute yourselves. Who wants to answer? Okay. Wala, I'll answer it myself. Mali. Pag journalist ka, dapat meron editorial independence. Pag marketing ka. Pag journalist ka. Pero the sad reality is, a journalist is allowed to do that to augment his or her income para mapuno yung income niya. Kasi walang pansahod na maayos. Tama ba? There's management abuse for the longest time we're talking about it in terms of security or tenure. Di ba? I pray for an ethical practice. Di ba? Pag nag-cover ng isang event, tapos alam naman, ito, magaling itong mga, minsan yung mga news subjects ba, yung papatawag ng press ko, for example, alam nila struggling journalist. Bago pa makauwi, meron ng, discreetly binibigyan ng pera para, sige, ito, X amount para, pero anong kapalit nun? Magandang storya kahit na explosive or investigative in nature yung gagawin na storya, di ba? So you're hushed not to tell the story because merong binigay sa'yo. That is so unethical, di ba? So they're really ill-disposed to those kinds of realities ethically. And then they're relegated to just being local. Binanggit ko na to, di ba? Parang, local lang naman sila. Mas gusto pa ng mga tao, mas pinapaniwalaan pag once a news gets to be on TV, on a national newspaper, or on radio. Or in fact, the amount of work put in by a journalist, by community journalists, is exactly the same, even more sometimes, depending on the situation, more than what a national journalist in Metro Manila does, di ba? So they're really undermined by undermined by sources as well and powers that be. Imagine mo, kinover na si mayor and governor, pero ang lumabas kasi medyo negative. I-undermine, i-humiliate pa, di ba na, wag yung paminiwalaan yan. Ano lang yan, local journalist lang yan. Just because ang lumabas is talagang negative sa kanya. Well, in fact, that was the true story about corruption as an example lang, di ba? So, they're demonizing, even bastardizing social media. Just imagine trolls bashing and demonizing, discrediting journalists. National na yun, what a more yung community journalists na kawawa nga sila, di ba? Exposed to violence and harassment, such as that of the Ampatuan massacre and all other unfortunate incidents that came our way in the history of journalism. And digitally challenged and uncompetitive, di ba? Ang community newspapers natin, dapat at this time, pinag-uusapan natin sa Philippine Presidency, at this time talaga tinuruan na namin or encourage them to be digital at this point. Kasi nung nawala yung mga newspapers during the pandemic, nagkaroon ng realization na talaga the technology has to be harnessed. The technology has to be utilized to be able to operate under circumstances, even in the most difficult circumstances. How do you do that? Sustaining journalism via digital. Mahirap because walang resources to put up a website. Merong iba using the social media, which is a really very good step to being felt digitally. Pero there's nothing like doing credible journalism or using the platform for credible journalism for contents that are vetted for the public consumption. Diba? Next slide, please. Sino, mahirap, I'm not going to bring anybody or pinpoint the public or, tuturo kung sino, but in general terms, sino dapat sisihin? Pag-isipan natin yung tinanong ko yung mga questions sa inyo kanina, those are very provocative in terms of how we all guys appreciate community journalism or how we do not appreciate community journalism. At this point, tanongin natin yung mga sarili natin. Are we contributing to the demise of community journalism? Are we contributing if a paper folds up in the community? Are we contributing to the sorry state of journalism in the country? Kahit tayo campus journalists, kahit tayo content providers, kahit tayo academics, pero pareho tayo ng ginagawa as stakeholders in truth-telling and chronicling of truth. It's an age-old practice. Di ba? Ang sistema of not paying journalists well, matagal na at yung arrangement na you do journalism, you do honest journalism, hopefully, but you also do marketing. Grabe yung practice na yon. It's so unethical and it's so unnerving at the same time. The management neglect. For decades, we've been talking about calling out management for wrong practices, di ba? They must come forward to really secure journalists. Meron problema tayo sa management or employment itself. The lack of opportunities for sources of funds. Di ba? Mahirap struggling as they already are, kailangan maghanap ng creatively, maghanap ng opportunities for them to survive. What with this pandemic, we would like to see opportunities for journalists to flourish, see community newspapers, because we want pluralistic media in the society. To be able to preserve democracy, dapat maraming mass media. Dapat madaming community journalism. Not because ABS-CBN close, sasabihin natin, meron pa namang ibang channel. No. A community that shuts out, a community media or a big network that shuts out is one too many. Hindi pwedeng excuse yung madami ka pang outlet. We want a pluralistic media, especially because elections are approaching. We want every news outlet that can be recognized to provide the vetted information, factual, truthful information for public empowerment. Gas-gas empowerment, that's exactly the point of this time. Why do we need to survive? Why have we survived during the pandemic? Because more information are dished out that enables us to be able to get by every day. And that's the importance of news and information, like food for thought, di ba? Or like food on the table, nourishes us, gives us the strength to be powerfully knowledgeable and powerfully significant in terms of how much information you want to share to your neighbors, because you get it from credible sources, di ba? Especially in this pandemic. Dwindling leadership, binanggit ko na to, is a sorry state. One newspaper shared to or with like 5 readers, di ba? And where does the old newspaper go? It either goes to the trash or it gets to be wrapped, di ba? And then, lack of absence of community support. Ito yung sinasabi natin, gusto natin mag-survive siya. At this point, we already appreciate the hard work and how they contribute, how each community journalist or community newspaper contributes to community building or nation building. We want them to sustain the operation because we want them to be with us to tell our stories every day or day in and day out. That's precisely the point in supporting community journalism. And because they have nothing, I mean, they have less. Please, 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 they have less compared to the big networks or the big newspapers that are residing or being produced in Metro Manila. And then you also have the rising cost of paper. Pinag-usapan matagal to. It's also why is it so difficult for a community newspaper that churns out or sustain a newspaper or print a newspaper, a copy? Kasi tumataas yung cost ng print, ng papel, di ba? Technology and social media also contribute to the confusion, also contribute to the erosion of public trust for community journalism or media for that matter. Bakit kailangan nating i-call out yung mga tao sa social media who bastardize and demonize journalists and media? Kasi hindi sila nakakatulong sa pagpropagate ng pluralism or pluralistic media sa atin. Much more, all the trolls want is to silence journalism, is to silence press freedom, to kill press freedom, to kill democracy, instead of supporting or instead of providing more and more venues and avenues for journalists to survive, for other newspapers to flourish, other media to flourish, or to be at par with let's say the international outlets, for example, di ba? Kasi gone are the days na pagsabi mo local, local lang yan. Hindi, we're talking about global information. We're talking about global content, di ba? Yung mga kung nagbabasa kayo, which brings mo, that's how I do my lectures every now and then. I always go back to the previous slides. Kung nagbabasa kayo, kaya tinatanong ko, or even how much time you actually spent reading a local paper or even a paper itself. Kasi gusto kong malaman, ano ang nakikita niyo in terms of content? Are they too local? Nakitaan niyo ba na a local story connects to almost every reality in the Philippines or in the world? That's how global community journalism should be. While it gets to feel the pulse, or they know how to feel the pulse of the community, alam nila kung paano maging globally relevant as well. And then you get a problem in the curriculum. I'm not pinpointing, I'm saying is that when we get to talk to a lot of professors, teachers, educators, sila din mismo nagsasabi, may problema tayo sa curriculum din. Kasi I think we need to focus or to provide that kind of discipline for clearer appreciation by estudyante na once they pursue a career in journalism, hopefully they go to print. Not to the glamour, not drawn to the glamour of television, not to the gung-ho reporting of radio. We want them to go to print. That's supposed to be the skeletal force of any journalism. That's the backbone of any journalism, print, diba? So I believe in a curriculum that gives faith, that gives hope, that provides a strong, that provides a better understanding of community journalism or print journalism. Kasi print ako, na dapat makitaan ng mga estudyante at this point that every career move to consider, I'm not saying it's going to be a project, every career path to consider should gives a thought on or should consider print, for example, di ba? And then you've got finally the state of press freedom in the Philippines. Kayo, nagbabasa kayo, and I'm pretty sure kayo in the university, alam nyo kung ano nangyayari. Alam nyo kung how press freedom in any other time in the history, hindi lang ngayon na administrasyon, yung mga previous administrations, you can actually compare. Pero at this point that we are living on a very dangerous world na merong pandemic, just imagine governments or any government using the pandemic to push for their agenda, di ba? Or to hush information, or to silence information, or to silence journalism. A lot of populist leaderships around the world are able to do that. And the pandemic is a tool for them to serve, to not survive, to serve the purpose, their personal interest, di ba? Next slide, please. So what do we do? Binanggit ko na every now and then. We got, more importantly, because I'm talking to you guys in the university, we've got the academic support. You know how to deal with it. You know how to provide the information that's best, that should be a better, um, that should provide a better comprehension of not only realities, but also provide a interest, keen interest in journalism. And for that matter, a keen appreciation on community journalism. Scholastic engagement. Ito yung sinasabi namin amongst ourselves in the media organization. PPED does a lot of community, not community engagement, campus engagement, which reminds me, by next year, I think Dean, hi Dean Bettina, this one for you to consider, and Professor Kevin, we are, for our scholastic engagement, we are choosing campus as campus host. And I'm thinking now of the university for next year as a campus host. Okay, how's that, Dean Bettina? Is that okay? Professor Kevin and a few guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
Thank you
kasi
po,
ang gagawin
sir.
namin, there are going to be 4 legs in Luzon and NCR, 3 in Mindanao, and 3 in Visayas. So in Luzon, that's you already. Please do remind me, because I'm quite full next year. But I'm saying this for transparency, and also for an announcement publicly that you are going to be a university campus partner for scholastic engagement. Thank you very much. And then, paano pa natin matutulungan itong problema natin sa community journalism natin? Yung, di ba, yung stakeholders na, ano to? What did I say? Stakeholders, okay. Peak in stakeholders' interest, dapat suportahan ng mga, kasi di ba, was the lifeblood of a newspaper. It's really advertising. Where did they get it from? They get it actually from local. Pero hindi naman nag-advertise lahat. So kailangan ka mag-rely naman on the big corporations, the big advertisers in Metro Manila or the NCR. Dapat yung local, kasi paano sila mag-advertise? They need to appreciate it first. The community journalism makes businesses survive. Kung walang journalism in the community, yung mga business natin hindi magsis, dapat makita na nila so that they're able to support community journalism or appreciate, not and not bastardize the profession, albeit use it to advance the causes of the community via businesses. And then more unconventional reporting. Binanggit at some point, kasi parang binanggit din, well, GMA and ABS-CBN and all the other networks, and probably practically all, use now citizen journalism. Walang masama yon. It's really civic engagement, public engagement. There's one of the more unconventional reporting, kasi the facts or even a video or a report is being provided by somebody in the community, a resident, for example. But it doesn't stop there. So that it becomes a piece of information by a non-journalist becomes journalism, it should be vetted. Who vets that? Is the editor, is the newsroom, to package it in such a way that it becomes journalistic. Diba? Maraming information, and information stops there. So what we make of information is called journalism. Pag pinackage na in such a way that is vetted, storified, for example, journalism na yon, correct? And then you've got grassroots reportage, diba? Sabi ko sa inyo, how does it feel to make sense or even being able to relate a story about somebody in the neighborhood, or as ang estudyante, a struggling estudyante na was able to clinch the top spot in the class, pero economically challenged. But once it gets across, it's being storified. It tells you about how it is important to be able to read a particular story that relates to everyone. That should be provided by community journalism because, as I said, it is able to go to the grassroots or communities to be able to talk to people there much longer than any other national or NCR journalist can do. Correct? And then sell. Dapat talagang ibenta, hindi pwedeng hindi pwedeng libre ang newspaper. 'Di ba sabi nga natin, apart from the meager advertising locally because they're scrambling also at some point, saan pa sila kumukuha? Judicial notices, legal notices, tingnan nyo doon. Yung mga galing sa gobyerno, Diyos ko, nag-aaway-aaway pa sila noon. It's a sordid state really of revenues in the community, di ba? So paano natin tutulungan? It's not enough, I know, pero pag nagbasa ang mga tao, you see the point of encouraging community to read, encouraging to appreciate content, and in the long run, able to sell the paper or buy the paper so that it helps the community journalist or the community newspaper sustain its operations. Diba? Imagine kung madaming, much more like everybody does pag nagbabasa sila ng dyaryo. Buibili, di ba? Pero pag tabloid in size ha, not in content. Pag tabloid, share kayong 4, 5. Di ba? How much is a tabloid a piece? Di ba ang kukunti lang, bumili na lang please, di ba? And you can store it as a piece of information, di ba? Piece of history. At nakatulong pa tayo sa nagsusulat ng storya para makasulat pa siya the next day. What we want is that by way of supporting, we're able to read that particular journalist that we want to and read some more stories the next day because we are able to survive. They're able to survive via our economic help, di ba? And then proper pay for skills and talent. It's about time that we pay them. Remember, there's a viral, it made quite a stir on social media, yung problema ng mga photojournalists, di ba? Gusto lang sumikat, okay na kahit walang bayar, konting-konti. We must pay talent and skill. Remember that you guys, if you are in journalism, will be in journalism or in the media industry at some point after you graduate or at some point in your career path, magiging boss kayo, please, let us pay them well because there's nothing like giving honor and recognizing talent and skill that anybody truly deserves. Correct? And then, the vicious cycle, stop making journalists as marketers. Tama na yun yung pinabenta mo kasi para ma-augment yung income and all the other unethical practices that make journalists even more disposed to dangers and violence, di ba? Pinakover mo doon kasi close siya kay ganito. Pero nung inattack na yung but the story turns out to be really negative, wala na. Iniwanan na sa ere, di ba? Parang ganon. Mahirap yun kasi we don't want to add any more to the statistics, to the rising statistics of dead journalists. We want them to come out alive, as I said, to tell the story of everyone in the community. Pair ethics with practical application. Sabi natin, mahirap pag-usapan natin yung ethics pag kumakalam yung sikmura mo, di ba? Kapit sa patalim, di ba? May sinasabi. But when you talk about ethics, dapat pag-usapan din natin how much of ethics you are going to really hold on to, but holding on to the practical application that say you are able to survive, you're able to feed your family, not maintain a lifestyle. That's what I'm saying. Able to live a quality of life because everybody considers your profession as a noble one. Correct? If everyone appreciates, especially the management, the employers, and even the stakeholders, direct or indirect stakeholders appreciate what the journalist does in the community, doon nila makikita how difficult it is. It's one of the riskiest sa insurance, di ba? One of the riskiest professions in the world. It's not even a profession, it's a job. We don't have a licensure examination. But the amount of time and work and even risking our lives to be able to get that story, but no amount of, it's not worth risking your life if you're going to be dead naman and not be able to come back alive to tell the story. Correct? Next slide, please. Okay. Who said this? Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. As I end my lecture, it is said by Thomas Jefferson. Thanks very much Ladies and gentlemen, I pose this as a challenge for all of us. We are all content providers, communicators. At some point, we need to contribute to community building and nation building as we preserve freedom of speech, press freedom, the constitutionally enshrined free speech, and the preservation of democracy so that each and every one of us gets to be alive for significant discourses, as I said. Maraming salamat po, and I'm so ready for your questions. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you so much po, Sir Ariel. Let's give him a round of applause. Ayan, sir. So, ang dami po naming natutunan at ang dami po
Thank
naming
you.
napulot. Actually, sir, community journalism is one of the subjects po na meron kami ngayon in third
Perfect.
year. Ako po ay
That's
third year
perfect.
student.
By the way
As well
pala,
as
sinabi
my
ko kay
partner here.
I volunteered kay Professor Kevin na if
Yes
he
po.
thinks of inviting me next year, I volunteered to be a lecturer.
Guest lecturer.
1 hour. Yes, guest lecturer.
Wow, thank you
Yeah.
so much, sir.
Thank you,
That we
sir.
will be glad
Thank
to
you.
see you there.
Tunay na tunay. Partner si Sir Renz Kevin nga, isa sa mga nagbabahagi sa atin ng mga kaalaman patungkol sa community journalism. At nang marinig ito sa mismong nag-practice na to na si Mr. Ariel, ay parang mas nakakapagbigay linaw sa atin, no? Parang mas enlightenment na, ganito pala talaga ang tunay na sitwasyon na talagang totoo yung sinasabi ni Sir RK na bagsak ngayon ang ating mga lokal na pamamahayag at kailangan natin ng suporta, higit na suporta, lalo na ngayong pandemya. Kaya maraming salamat po sa pagbahagi ng inyong kaalaman. Ngayon mga ka-Jorno, bukas ang ating open forum ulit. Gamitin ang hashtag #AskSirAriel. Ulit, #AskAriel.
#AskAriel. Ayan.
Ayan, para makalinawan tayo, no? Chikahan ulit tayo sa inyong mga nais bigyang linaw ngayong umagang ito.
Yan. So let us check our Facebook Live comments as well as our Zoom meeting comments or chat box kung meron man pong mga katanungan. Ayan.
Ayan. Partner, may nababasa ka na ba?
So far wala pa, pero meron akong nabubuong question sa isip ko. Sir Ariel, maitanong ko lang din po sa inyo since you have mentioned that you are assigned to print. My question is, do you believe that the newspapers are a dying media?
I was kind of expecting that question already because it usually crops up every now and then when we do our seminars. But the last time they said that the press is going to die 10 years ago, we're still here. Pag namatay ang newspapers, wala na rin Philippine Press Institute. I think it's not going to die. As I said in this pandemic, we're thinking about recalibrating newspaper management or sustaining newspapers because we cannot discount that technology has taken over all facets in the society. And for sure, that should be considered as a reinforcement to newspapering. Hindi pwedeng mawala yung first handle. I always say this, content will always be king and key. Hindi pwedeng mawala yun. You can be too ambitious with the platform and technology, but ang dapat importante ay paigtingin yung content in the context of excellence. You can only do so much with the technology. What more with the crappy internet infrastructure in the Philippines? The technology depends a lot. For example, this platform, for example, depends a lot on the strength of the internet, Wi-Fi connection. Pag wala yun, bagsak na ba kaagad yung human function natin? Hindi. Kailangan we're able to utilize or even manipulate technology so that it works our own advantage. Hindi pwedeng we are ruled over by the technology or social media. Dapat tayo ang may control na yun. And the print should stay because it serves a purpose. And the purpose of which is to preserve democracy. Vital to information is that the pluralistic media society that I'm talking about, media literacy, media information literacy that I'm talking about, because there's nothing like print. There's nothing like smelling probably the foul odor of a page, right? So we're still here and it's going to survive. It did survive during this pandemic.
Yes, sir. We believe in that spirit.
Thank you.
And ayun po, sir. Maitanong ko rin din po, no? Masyado akong curious sa community journalism dahil sa amin pong municipality, I'm from Tanza po, Tanza Cavite. Meron po kami ditong online news media outlet. This is called Balitang Tanzenyo.
Wow.
And I'm so glad that one
You're
of
part of
my
it.
colleague, student journalist is a part of it.
Correct.
And ang question ko po, sir, is what can you say, what advice can you give to community journalism
Okay.
using the online
Yeah.
platform?
Gusto ko yan. Gusto ko yung tanong na yan. Stay focused. Stay disciplined. You have to know your core from the very start. Unang-una, tanungin mo, bakit ka sumali sa isang newspaper, sa isang outlet na yan? Why do you have so much faith for that paper? Yung mga pag-iisipan mo kasi may kinalaman yan sa character mo. May kinalaman siya kung ano ang gusto mong gawin sa buhay. May kinalaman siya kung paano ang isang online outlet or community outlet, a news outlet, serves a purpose. To stay in power, for that matter, for it to flourish, to survive, it must survive economically. That means you must find creative ways at this point. We're talking about in the pandemic crisis. Na although mas mura pag online ha, not because it's mura, hindi mo na kailangan mo pa rin bayaran. Meron ka pa rin mga expenses, di ba? You've got a website, hosting domain, etc. every year that you have to pay year in and year out. And also, you have to pay naman your reporters din, di ba? So, para mag-survive or tumagal or magstay forever, yung community news outlet na yan, kailangan niya merong suporta ng komunidad. Paano? Dapat basahin ng basahin. Remember, in the algorithm, minsan yung mga gusto sumuporta sa isang community outlet, tinitingnan yung algorithm, di ba? Yung ilan yung visits, iba yung likes, ng isang, kasi tinitingnan nila kung ano ba yung strength ng isang community news outlet na yan. Binabasa ba siya in the first place? Importante, tinatangkilik siya, meron siyang patrons kasi, bakit? It's a telltale sign that is considered important in the community. Correct? Di ba? At saka wag mawalan ng pag-asa. So just because every crisis is difficult, the pandemic is so difficult for most of us, it's unprecedented, mawawalan ka panghihinaan ka na ng loob. I think more than ever, I would always say this, that we shall live another day.
Thank you, sir. That's so inspiring and motivational. Hindi po ako nag-expect ng ganyan kalalim na answer pa sa aking question, but thank you so much, sir. This is very helpful.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Ariel. May isa pong tanong po dito mula naman sa ating mga journmates. How do you see community journalism 10 years from now, Sir Ariel?
Oh, maganda din yan. Ako, in-expect ko din yung tanong na yan kasi ito yung mga, you think like journalist, no? Talaga kasi your campus journalist, di ba? Kasi, di ba, even like asking, how is going to be like a year after or after the pandemic, di ba? As we move forward to another realm or another time na magkakaroon na tayo ng panibagong technology. I always say this na, who knows? 1 minute now or 2 days after, meron na magre-replace sa Facebook. Kasi remember yung Friendster dati, di ba? Kung naabutan nyo pa yon, may Friendster. Tapos, maya-maya meron ng Facebook. What I'm saying is that the future of the prospects for print in the next 10 years will be, number one, will still be challenged by the technology. Number two, it will recalibrate in terms of visual content. And then number three, it will be challenged by how the industry itself will be able to manage practitioners na ang expertise niya ay lahat. You get my point? Pwede siya pang TV, pwede siya pang visual, pwede siya pang print, pwede siya pang, in other words, mas well-rounded ang isang content provider, isang journalist. So I'm trying to be optimistic about this because I've been asked that before, or have asked the same question to another to a senior practitioner. Hindi pa rin mawawala yung print, but it's going to be reinforced by technology. It's going to be reinforced by other platforms, social media, and who knows, as I said, may ibang platform na susulpot na talagang unang-una kailangan pag-aralan. Number two, gagamitin to the advantage of the publishers, the editors, or the community newspapers themselves. Yun.
Ayan, sir. So medyo inuulan po tayo ng questions dito. Ready pa po makisagot, sir? Ang dami na nito.
Sige.
Alright. Sabi po ni Rica Pasaba, is social media a reliable method of spreading journalistic articles? Hashtag
Aha.
Ask Ariel.
Okay. It can be a reliable avenue for spreading or sharing journalistic content. Pero ang kasabay niyan dapat kailangan matuto ang social media or netizens na buksan yung title or basahin yung title bago pa i-share. I'm saying that because it spawned, not doing that, spawned disinformation and misinformation. How much of the netizens, how much time does a netizen devote to reading a content, a journalistic content? Hindi. Kaya nga, meron tinatawag na trendingness and virality of a paper, of an article. Kasi, ang pinagbabasahan yung title na the more catchy, probably gross and sensation the title is, the more it is shared, the more it gets many likes, the more it gets viral and trending, di ba? Pero yung pala, disinformation and misinformation na. What I'm saying is that it is a powerful tool to make or break journalism. That's what's happening right now. The inundation of misinformation and disinformation in this country or around the world, social media has to own up to its to its sin na meron siyang kinalaman that it contributes to disinformation and misinformation and even technology itself. Now is the time to be discerning. Now is the time to take over that space. Take over that space so that that space can be of significant use to provide and share journalistic or journalism or pieces of journalism or articles and stories for public consumption. Kasi nakitaan natin na talagang ito, ilang population natin sa Philippines? We are like 104, less than 110 million Filipinos in the Philippines, right? And a little half of it, 54 million are netizens or Facebook users, internet users. One of that is the highest in Asia. Just imagine kung itong mga taong to, hindi lang nila at huwag din 54 million, at least more than half of the internet users are able to provide the significant space or discourse by giving back that faith to journalism via social media, di ba? Happy people and happy place for everyone, di ba? Kung darating yung time na yun.
Maraming salamat po, Sir Ariel. Sir Ariel, dumalalim ang ating mga katanungan. Pagsamahin na natin tanong ni Sean at
Sure.
Bianca dito sa comment section. Sabi po ni Sean, kasabay ng mababang pagtingin sa ating local journalist o sa community journalism, gaya nga ng nabanggit nyo po kanina sa diskusyon, ay mahigpit din po o matindi rin po ang pag-atake sa ating mga journalist. Katulad na nga lang po ng isang halimbawa, 19 journalists po sa 4 na taon ng rehimeng Duterte ang namatay. May batas daw po ba na nagpoprotekta sa seguridad ng ating mga mamahayag? Sa ating mga community journalists?
Insofar as we are concerned, including you guys, wala. Pero, it's safe to say that every life, every human dignity is important or is being protected by the Constitution. There are laws penalizing killings. There are laws prohibiting crimes. There are existing laws that should penalize wrongdoings. When a perpetrator goes scot-free because he killed a journalist or he harassed and violently imposed violence on the journalist, against the journalist, pag hindi ni-reinforce yung batas, nagkakaroon ng impunity. And how much of impunity are we talking about, not only in this administration and government, but any other time in our history? Since immemorial, we've been talking about impunity and the killing of journalists and how disposed journalists are to violence, and they're being discredited in social media, and they're being ambassadors, as I said. Laws provide the basic protection for journalists, even economic laws. But what's happening right now, they are neglected. Ang scary lang doon is that magpo-propose ng law under the guise of security, economic security, pero I know what you're getting at, pero ang problema pala at the end, gusto lang sikilin, or what's that? To squeeze on the neck, or ang tawag nun, yung to narrow press freedom instead of providing more avenues for free press. You know how scary a law when it gets proposed, di ba? Example, remember the time when they proposed a Magna Carta or Magna Carta for journalists? Di ba? We said no. Hindi nila tinuloy yun kasi dapat binabasa yung proposed bills talaga. Hindi siya pwedeng, wag nyo, do not rely on the legislators because they will, alam nyo naman yung interest nila, di ba? So, I do remember sa time na yun, we said no to a Magna Carta for journalists kasi nung binasa namin yung provision, gusto nila mag-create ng commission or a group that accredits journalists. Imagine, sila ang magde-define ng journalism at ang gobyerno ang magde-define kung sino ang journalist o hindi. Tama ba yon? A law that states that, a law that defines journalism or even says or accredits journalism should not be supported. What should be supported are laws that are already there, are laws that should stop impunity, laws that should end impunity, laws that should respect human rights, basic human rights, laws that value preservation of dignity and human rights, no matter how small or big a life is. So enough, we have so many laws already in this country. When you talk about labor laws, sinabi ko kanina, hindi binabayaran ng tama. Sumunod ka lang sa labor law, andun na yon. Pag hindi sila sumunod, then penalize the company. Correct? Or you have other redress. What's the redress? Go to the court, charge. Di ba? Kasuhan mo. Kasi meron naman merong laws for that, di ba? Ang dapat wala, okay, since ito ginagamit sa maling paraan, ang maling-mali talaga, the libel law. That should be decriminalized because ito medyo ang gas-gas na to, it gives chilling effect on the journalist or any other person who gives vital information, di ba? Imagine, remember the cyber law na anybody can be sued on the cyberspace or the violation of the Cybercrime Prevention Act, di ba? So what they're saying is that these are all laws that should give space for more democratic processes like journalism and community engagement or civic engagement.
Ayan, sir. Thank you so much po for answering the question. So, as of 12:02, meron po tayong 294 participants here in Zoom. So, mag-entertain din po tayo ng questions. Meron pong dalawang nagtaas ng kamay. Mukhang sila po ay interested to ask a question. Unahin po natin si Miss Stephanie Daguro.
Sige, basahin natin yan, partner. Ang sabi ni Miss Stephanie, pero bago pala natin basahin yung question ni Miss Stephanie, banggitin lang natin nakikisa ang ating programa sa International Human Rights Day na ipinagdiriwang ngayong araw.
Yes.
Ayan. Sabi dito ay, paano natin mako-convince ang readers na dapat rin palang tangkilikin ang print media? At paano po itong mas nagiging mabisa kaysa sa ibang platforms?
Correct. Ito na, magandang usapin yan. We're boarding on the creative aspect. Di ba? Tayo, alam na natin as communicators, even thinking about what to read, what to watch on TV, what to listen to on the radio, alam natin kung ang gusto natin. Dapat alam. Hindi pwedeng, ako, like ito sinasabi to, just because you're a journalist, yun lang ang gagawin mo. At ang alam mo talaga, mag-provide lang ng istorya. It doesn't stop there. At this point, we are a segmented society. You've got the millennials, you have the baby boomers, you've got other sectors in the society na iba-iba yung pangangailangan. You've got people who are who are drawn to visually appealing characters or stories, di ba? Kaya nga, ang TV mas popular pa rin and even radio mas popular pa rin. Kasi yung boses gusto marinig. Tsaka yung TV, syempre, yung mga artista and all. So, calling the lessons from the other platforms, creatively, dapat alam, a story should not end there. You provide photos, the story itself, pero dapat alam ng journalists, even the ones running the paper, that the paper should be readable. How does it become readable? Dapat yung visuals niya appealing talaga. Provide more graphics and photos. Kahit tabloid size lang yan. Pero ang content niya hindi pang tabloid. Malawak. May storya pag nag-scan ka ng pages niya, merong a page is being utilized in such a way that a reader is hooked to reading a page or the pages and even wanting to read more the next time around na merong issue, bagong issue, di ba? So hindi siya dapat flat. There's such a thing as called flat content lang. You know, it's there. Parang, okay, the flat content is because you have a market that serves the A, the B. Pero if you want to be commercially appealing or commercially viable, syempre ang target mo, the people, the masses, di ba? I mean, you want readership to grow because you want people to buy into your newspaper or buy your newspaper, di ba? And then also want your advertisers to advertise, di ba? So paano nila paano nila babasahin or even kahit sa website online kung hindi siya visually appealing. Pero dapat kasi ang visuals should reinforce the content. Hindi pwedeng, ay, mataas ako sa visual, pero yung content mo naman, nako, wale, di ba? So dapat pareho sila. Ngayon kasi, na ang competition talaga is given, as provided by the digital or the technology itself. Dapat yung print ay to be able to be at par sa mga platforms na yon, or even to ride into the popularity of the social media. Kailangan meron siyang visual appeal na ako sa tingin ko, pagkakagatin ng mga millennials, yan ang measure or gauge na kakagatin siya ng other sectors. Kasi malaki ang market ng youth talaga eh. Di ba? Ang youth kayo, mas you're drawn into the visually appealing content, di ba? So yun, dapat visually appealing talaga. Not too heavy on the text, but does not sacrifice the quality of content or the text itself, but it's coupled, it's paired with an ample visual na nagre-reinforce ng content. Hindi lang dahil nilagay siya dahil gusto mo lang. Dapat kailangan siya. Yun. Avoid flat surface. So yun.
Ayan, sir. Thank you so much for answering our question. So I think we're going to cut here the Q&A, but we will be going back later. Tama, partner?
Sir Ariel, Miss Maris, mga kasama, mga nanonood sa atin ngayon, babalik po ang ating dalawang guest speakers para magsama at sagutin ang ating mga katanungan mamaya-maya lamang. Kaya mas magiging malaman pa ang ating mga kwentuhan. Ayan. So hindi tayo
Yan, masaya ba kayo?
So, ihanda na inyong mga questions at mamaya-maya lamang, sasagutin na lang yan magkasama. Sama-sama tayong matututo ngayong umagang ito. Ngayon naman, para sa awarding ng certificate sa ating kabilib-bilib at kahangahangang Sir Ariel Sebellino.
Yeah. So, this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Mr. Ariel Sebellino for being the keynote speaker in the 20th Journalism Seminar entitled Sa Trulang, Mga Istoryang Pang-News at Hindi Fake, presented this 10th of December 2020, signed by the following: Ms. Alexandra Javier Furio, Overall Coordinator; Mr. Renz Kevin M. Alcazar, our Journalism Seminar Advisor; Professor Ruby A. Manaig, Program Coordinator; Professor Rosa R. Hernandez, our Department Chair; and of course, Dr. Bettina Joyce P. Ilagan, our College Dean. Once again, let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Ariel. Ngayon po, photo op po muna tayo. Tara mga ka-journal, buksan ang ating mga cameras. At para sa picture kasama si Sir Ariel. At balik tayo sa tanungan mamaya. Ayan. Ready na ba?
Thank you, Sir Ariel.
Thank you.
Thank you po, sir.
Ayan. Nakaposing na ba tayo?
I'll be getting the photos po. Sige po.
Okay po.
2 slides po to. Okay po. Okay. Ready for the first slide po. 1, 2, 3. Ayan. Wait lang po ha. Send ko lang po sa amin. Ayan po. For the next slide. Ayan po. 1, 2, 3. Ayan. Thank you po once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Babalik pa, no? Babalik.
Yes, sir. For a
Oh.
virtual
Yes,
round-up po
sir.
with Miss
Standby lang
Maris.
po
What
kayo
time?
dyan.
Mga ilang
Meron pa po
minutes
tayong
pa?
mga question.
Sige. Can you just go to the to the banyo
Just a few
first?
minutes, sir.
Okay, sige.
Ayan.
Wait lang ha.
Ayan. So mga kasama, babalik po si Miss Maris at Sir Ariel. For now, hinga-hinga muna tayo, merienda konti o pahinga-hinga at mag-unat-unat sa iting mga upuan at panoorin muna natin isang video performance at babalik tayo sa isang makabuluhan at malamang kwentuhan.
Yes, partner. Tayo rin, pahinga din muna tayo and let's enjoy this short video.
Maraming salamat. Walang bibitiw.
Don't forget to comment your questions.
Hashtag #Satrulang, hashtag 20th Jornsam, hashtag 2 dekada na po kami at huwag kakalimutan ng share your takeaways na maaari ka manalo ng magkano, Ethel?
100 pesos load! Ayan.
Wow.
And if you have questions, hashtag Ask Ariel and hashtag Ask Maris. Ayan. So, ito na
Yan.
talaga.
Comment
Sa tuna.
na.
Nung araw ay tamis ng ating buhay, puno ng saya at ng kulay, hindi mauulit muli. Ang oras kapag hinayaang lumipas, madarama mo hanggang bukas, di mababawi muli. Ang dami-daming bagay na hindi naman kailangan, kung pwede lang buwasan natin ang mga tampuhan. Hindi mo lang alam, hindi mo pa nararanasan, kahapon sana natin hindi mo na pinahirapan. Tawag muli, hindi na muli. Ang oras kapag hinayaang lumipas, madarama mo hanggang bukas, di mababawi muli. At natapos ang himas ng sandali, di ko humili aking tinig ng lumipas, nang di man lang nasabi salamat hanggang sa muli. Ang dami-daming bagay na hindi naman kailangan, kung pwede lang buwasan natin ang mga tampuhan. Hindi mo lang alam, hindi mo pa nararanasan, kahapon sana natin hindi mo na pinahirapan. Patawad muli, hindi na muli. Binawi buhay mo na walang sabi, binubulong ko sa sarili, mahal kita hanggang sa huli, mahal ko hanggang
Maraming salamat, Miss Kimberly Mauricio. Napakaganda naman ng iyong awitin. Palakpakan naman dyan. Ayan, may we welcome back ang ating mga bigating guest speakers, Miss Maris Umali and Sir Ariel Sebellino. And kamusta po, Sir Ariel? Hello po.
Hello,
ulit.
hi.
Si Miss Maris po, nandiyan na po ba?
Hi. You see
Hi,
me?
Miss Maris.
Hi, Sir. Yeah.
Hi, Maris. Hi.
Oh.
Right. So,
Nako.
magkakaroon po tayo ng virtual roundup. This will be very quick lang po para po sa mga pahabol na questions ng ating po mga students, professors, and the rest of our participants. So, mag-start na po kami na magbasa.
Ayan.
So, para po muna kay Sir Ariel. Sabi po dito, Sir, kung kayo po ang papipiliin, are you still going to choose the process of using print media to disseminate information or yung makabagong paraan na ino-offer ng technology sa atin ngayon?
Actually, I was reading it kanina. I was about to answer it via chat. Pero kung akong papiliin kasi, this is really self-serving, having been in the print industry for so many years, since 1997. So ang bias ko talaga print. Siyempre si Maris naman talaga is broadcast naman. Pero di ba Maris, yan yung sinasabi ko kanina, hindi mo pwedeng paghiwalayin where the platforms are different. Hindi mo pwedeng paghiwalayin na, ay TV lang yan, ay print lang yan. Sama sa kami pag nagkakasama kami nag-uusap about, problema sa industriya, problema sa trabaho. Hindi namin hinihiwalay yung kasi kayo, ganyan. Ang pinag-uusapan namin, in general terms So asking me about kung in my other lifetime, there's going to be. Diba? Ako, I still would choose print. Pero hindi ko na i-discount yung necessity of using other platforms, and most especially whatever technology comes my way or comes our way, comes the print way, that should be harnessed so that ang print ay hindi siya print lang sa perception ng tao na print lang yan hindi siya malawak, hindi siya ganito lang siya and all. Pero if print can calibrate and given the chance, if I can in the future, talagang i-recalibrate ko siya in a manner that should be visually appealing. Na ang content na medyo hindi parochial, universal yung appeal niya. Tapos mas hindi siya bias sa isang segment lang, di ba? Parang, okay, pag binasa ko ang Business Mirror, for example, or Business World, ay, yung mga businessmen lang nagbabasa niyan. Or yung mga tao merong business acumen, or ang gustong basahin yung business news lang. Dapat ma-consider ko na ang segmented sectors ng society ko should be considered in the readership as a whole. Yun.
Maraming salamat, Sir Ariel. Ayun po, sunod naman po na katanungan ay para naman kay Miss Maris at kay Sir Ariel na po. Pero Miss Maris po muna, parehas muna tanong sa inyo ay, alam po natin parehas ko tayo lumalabas ngayon sa print at sa broadcast. Lumalabas tayo para kumuha ng balita. Ang tanong po ni Tris Kasaysayan ay ano po yung mga protocols na maaari nyo mabahagi sa amin? Bukod sa swab testing, may mga specific protocols daw po ba na ibinababa sa ating mga reporters, mapa-print man o mapa-broadcast? Si Miss Maris po muna.
Bago ka sagutin yan, gusto ko lang din idagdag dun sa sinabi ni Sir Ariel kanina. Actually, parang every platform is very important. And sa panahon ngayon, hindi mo na siya talaga mapapaghiwalay. Dahil even, I'm sure sina Sir Ariel, even if they're using the print as a platform to deliver the news, they're also using at the same time yung online. Para mas maging wider yung reach. And sa amin din, for example, nasa broadcast kami, but we are always requested to report sa radio. For example, sa GMA, we have DZBB. So, kailangan kung meron kaming breaking news at kami yung nandun at wala yung reporter ng DZBB dun sa area na yun, nire-request kami na mag-report din sa DZBB. We also write our own stories for our online platform para mas marami yung marireach. And ito lang din yung talagang lagi kong natatandaan kasi si Ma'am Jess, isa sa mga bosses namin, and of course si Jessica Soho, talagang talagang nirerespeto nating lahat. Talagang hanggang ngayon, talagang yung dyaryo yung talagang lagi niyang sinishare sa amin, halimbawa sa thread namin, every morning, kung ano yung mga nabasa niya sa dyaryo, yun din yung sinishare niya sa amin sa thread, na parang lagi niya ini-instill sa amin yung importance of always reading the newspaper. And parang, kaya ang tumatak sa akin, kapag talagang intellectual, talagang dyaryo yung magiging dyaryo yung source mo ng ng information na news, kasi parang halimbawa sa TV, very limited yung time. Kailangan ma-deliver mo yung buong balita, halimbawa in 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the average, or 3 minutes. Hanggang dun lang. Pero para ma-explain mo lahat, talagang makikita mo yan sa dyaryo, sa print. So, very limited din sa sa radyo, 'di ba? Tapos sa online, hindi rin naman lahat napapaliwanag. Nandun din yung balita, mahanap mo rin. Pero talagang yung complete story, tsaka talagang lahat-lahat, normally nahahanap mo siya sa dyaryo. Kaya parang sobrang, yes, I agree with Sir Ariel. Now, to answer the question, basically, isa sa mga guidelines na nabanggit ko rin kanina, hindi kami pinapapasok sa loob ng ospital. Hindi ko alam kung sa ibang mga networks, ano yung protocols nila. Pero sa amin, dati kung talagang very, very quick kami sa pagpasok sa mga ospital, kahit na ano pa yung mga storya, kahit na may mga ano pa noon, mga kung ano-anong mga virus, parang okay lang na pumasok kami. Ngayon na nagkaroon ng COVID, talagang ang isa sa mga bilin sa amin, kahit na anong mangyayari, hindi kami papasok sa loob ng ospital. So if you were able to watch before yung marami mga storya sa 24 oras, ang daming mga 'di ba, mga story na inside the ER, inside the hospital, mga yun, mga ginawa ni Rafi yun, si Rafi Tima. And pinagmamalaki ko lang kasi ang dami niyang mga gadgets, like for example, yung mga 360 niya na camera, na may mga na nakakausap siya ng mga kaibigan or siguro mga sources sa loob ng ospital, na parang binibilin lang niya yung camera niya na yon. And since it's 360 camera, parang kumbaga once na kinabit nila yun sa damit nila or somewhere dun sa taong yon, parang hindi na nila kailangang isipin kung ano pa yung gagawin kasi 360 siya. So the entire time, naka-roll lang yon. Parang wala nang iisipin yung halimbawa yung nurse o kaya yung doktor na pinakausapan niya. Tapos lahat nakukunan na yon, nare-record. Tapos halimbawa, meron siyang mga nakausap na mga nurse na sobrang gagaling, na para ring mga reporter kung magtanong sa mga pasyente. So talagang nakaka-capture din yung story. Tapos out of that recording, nakakabuo ng storya ngayon si Rafi. So kailangan maging innovative ka sa mga situations like that, wherein, for example, we are not allowed to go inside the hospital, pero kailangan mo pa rin mapalabas kung ano yung nasa loob ng ospital. So, hahanap ka ng paraan para paano mo mapapakita yung mga bagay na yon. So, isa yun sa mga protocols namin. And of course, yung usual lang. Like, for example, always wear your face mask, your face shield, maintain the physical distancing, always disinfect. Lahat yan pin-provide ng opisina namin. Like, they always provide us with the masks, with the shields, and with alcohol, with disinfectants. Laging kasama yan sa mga namin, sa mga kit na pinoprovide ng opisina, because we're being sent out. Kumbaga parang yun yung mga armas namin sa gera. So yun lang naman yung mahalaga. And then every once in a while, before yung opisina, ina-antigen test kami, parang every month, para ma-test, masiguro na wala kang COVID-19. Pero nung time na parang sinabi ng Department of Health na wag na hindi yun yung parang pinaka-reliable na way of finding out, kundi yung kasi rapid test before, 'di ba? Kaya lang minsan hindi rin pala siya ganun ka-reliable. Nung naging swab test na, swab kami kapag halimbawa magpo-fall ka under the requirements na kailangan kang iswab. Kasi since noong time na yon, very limited yung mga swab tests, hindi mo rin naman pwedeng ipilit na lahat ng mga employees sumailalim sa swab test. Kasi most of us naman are not symptomatic. So bakit ka isa sa ilalim sa swab kung wala ka namang symptoms? Unless you became a direct contact of someone who tested positive for COVID-19. Pagka ganun, syempre, isa-swab kami. And now that I'm covering of course, ngayon, ang kino-cover ko kasi sa Camp Crame ako, nasa police beat ako kay General Sinas. Nung nagsimula siya maging Chief PNP, parang policy niya na parang every 2 weeks or regularly before we cover him, nagsaswab kami. So, requirement for us na mga PNP press corps to always undergo swab tests. So, doon nalalaman namin na talagang safe pa rin kami, di ba? Na wala pa rin kaming COVID. Yun lang.
Thank you, Miss Maris. How about you, Sir Ariel?
Hindi, yun naman, binanggit na ni Marisla, the health protocols basically are for everyone, di ba? Kung susumahin mo, pag-iisipan mo, yung mga social or physical distancing, tapos yung wearing of masks and face shields, that goes for everyone. Mas talagang exposed lang ang mga journalists kasi expectation sa kanila or sa amin talagang we're out there all the time to cover. Tapos kanino-kaninong tao kami na nakikipaghalubilo. Tapos yung environment na ginagalawan namin, hindi naman namin alam ano na pala yon. Disposed na pala kami sa virus, di ba? So mas paigtingin yung pag-iingat pa dahil syempre kailangan pa rin buhay, di ba Marisa, no? Kailangan pa rin makareport ng maayos. Tapos syempre ang gusto natin, maayos na ibalita yon. Pag maayos din yung pangkalusugan natin, hindi tayo apektado, wala tayong virus and all, mas maigting lang talaga yung pag-iingat. Pareho naman yan lahat for very comprehensive na yung binanggit ni Maris kanina. So I will not add any more to the other health protocols.
All right, thank you po. There is another question po for both of you. This is from Sir Justin Libunaw. Sabi niya po, as professional communicators, what are your ways in combating infodemic?
The
Sige,
lady
pausap po kayo kung
first.
sino po mauna.
Si Miss Maris muna. Parehas.
Ang daming mga ganyan 'di ba? Parang sumabay siya dun sa pandemic. Well, always just stick to the facts. Kahit na halimbawa anong mangyari, gagawa ka ng paraan to get to the real source of the information. Kailangan makuha mo yung balita talaga dun sa mga tunay na sources. Kapag halimbawa may mga lumalabas sa mga social media na ganito, minsan sasabihin, make a story out of it. Syempre, ang una mong gagawin, i-verify mo yung storya. Totoo ba to? Kapag halimbawa, for example, may aksidente or may mga crime na nangyari, hanapin mo sa police. For example, saan ba nang galing? Just check on the veracity of the news story. Kasi bilang mga mamamahayag, of course, responsibilidad namin na ang ibabalita lang namin, yung katotohanan lang. Ngayon, yun lang naman din ang way to combat infodemic yung talagang ilalabas mo yung katotohanan. And as much as possible, using all the platforms that we have. For example, yung namin, television, radio, yung online namin, lahat ng mga possible ways of disseminating the right information, ipapalabas mo yon para mas marami or mas wider yung reach niya. Kasi kung halimbawa, and of course, attack those wrong information directly. Meaning, hindi mo aawayin, but you address it. Kapag halimbawa may mga kumakalat na mga maling impormasyon, kailangan nating sabihin mismo na talagang according to the source ay mali ito. Like for example, may kumalat recently na ila-lockdown daw ang buong Pilipinas sa December, this Christmas season, di ba? 2025 ba or something hanggang January 3 na. Yeah. It's one example of an infodemic kasi kinakalat mo yung maling impormasyon. Bakit? Para mag-cause ng panic, 'di ba? Mag-cause ng kaguluhan. And hindi ko alam kung anong dahilan ng mga taong nagpapakalat ng mga ganitong impormasyon. So, agad-agad nung inalam namin yung information kung totoo ba to mismo sa Malacanang, dahil sila rin naman talaga yung talagang authority to address the question, sinabi nila na mali, hindi totoo yung ganung impormasyon. Right away, ibinalita namin sa newscast na mali itong impormasyon na kumakalat nito, na fake news lamang ito. So, kailangan mo talagang i-address siya directly para hindi magdulot ng kalituhan sa mga tao.
Correct. Agree ako kay Maris. Very well said. Pang Miss Universe.
Wow, sir.
Hindi ganito. I'll be speaking like an ordinary citizen. Ako kasi, di ba, sabi ko, di ba tayo Maris, di ba, ginagalawan natin pag nakakahubilo natin, unang-una yung mga kapwa natin colleagues. Tapos pag nasa outside world na tayo, siyempre iba-iba ng tao na. Ako, like kong sinasabi, every time I get to be asked about how do you contribute to curbing fake news or infodemic, misinformation, malinformation, disinformation, ang orientasyon ko lagi is, how does it feel for me to read the fake news, di ba, on social media? How does it feel kung isang neighbor mo or close friend mo or family member shares a fake news? Masasaktan ka, di ba? At manggagalaiti ka. The best way I did, ito, practical experience lang. Siyempre, di ba tayo Pinoy, we're so, unang-una, kaya nga, di ba, malakas yung loob ng mga tao ngayon to be critical, to be overbearing, to be entitled. Kasi ang social media provides that exactly na anonymous lahat. Yung tipong, hindi naman tayo magkaka-physikalan dahil hindi tayo makikita. So, malakas yung loob mo. So, anyway, having said that, parang Filipinos are out there to insult right away. So, what I did, para hindi makasama, kasi syempre, mababasa yun ng mga tao pag nag-comment ka and all, I did the backdoor. I called it backdoor. I had to call out that person. I had to call some persons many times over in the past. Sabihin ko, siguro dahil ayaw ko siyang ipahiya, but at the same time, it's really one way of directly confronting the issue and confronting him without having to humiliate him on social media or in the public. Sinabi ko na, anong mali yun? You have to take that down dahil nabalita na yan na fake news yan. Having said that, an ordinary citizen like kung sino man, with all intents and purposes of fact-checking, dapat talaga tayo lahat matuto mag-fact-check. Hindi lang kami na nasa media, hindi lang kami ng mga media practitioner journalists, dapat lahat. Hindi lang Verifies, Rappler, or any other international fact-checking, member ng international fact-checking network ang magpa-fact-check. Or even the academic should be at the helm of fact-checking. Di ba? Kasi ang fact-checking, matagal na yan. Sa newsroom, may fact-checking na talaga yan. Bago pa ipalabas ng GMA7, ng ABS, bago pa mag-report si Maris ng kanyang story, or kami sa print, mapublish siya isang story, dumadaan yan sa layers of editing. So remember the fact-checking in the newsroom, that's so rigid and that is so stringent. Pero what we're saying right now, as a practice, that should be a practice, applied practice right now. Lahat dapat kahit hindi nasa industriya marunong mag-fact-check. As simple as, let's say, for example, pag sinare ba sa social media dahil trending, ang ganda, very appealing, tapos ang pagka-headline pa, kung hindi ka makaganito, hindi ka ganito, hindi ka tired and all, okay sa'yo. So, isi-share mo dahil hindi naman siya upfront sa pagiging tao mo, di ba? So, without having to read the content. So, read ka agad. Ang unang step talaga niyan, tinuturo namin sa industry is that magbasa. Basahin yung content and then check all the elements there. Sino yung author? Kailan? Maayos pa pagkasulat? Ito bang story na to lumabas many times o baka kung isa lang, that's a telltale sign na, oy, pops, teka lang. Bakit hindi siya lumabas sa GMA? Bakit lumabas siya sa isang news outlet na obscure? Di ba? Wala dun sa mga big legacy media sinasabi natin na talagang dependable, reliable. So that should give you a thought na one way of checking a content is to check all the elements. Dahil nga, di ba, Maris, ang mga Pinoy, tamad. Tamad talaga magbasa. And that's exactly, sabi ko nga kanina, Facebook should own up to its mistake na talagang it provides yung maling paraan na paggamit nito. Sabihin ko na lang gano'n na without being blatant about it. Na talagang, unang-una naman, ang Facebook for social expression. and that we all clamored for making it a significant manner of, let's say, providing blah, blah, blah. Until such time, ginagamit na talaga siya for propaganda, for dishing out information and misinformation. So it all boils down to the platform dapat nga should reinforce journalism, credible journalism na pinaprovide ng legacy media and all the other platforms na merong legitimacy and credibility baga. So yun, let's all be fact checkers and let's all promote readership para malaman natin we're able to scrutinize what's journalistic and what's not, and what's just information and what's packaged in such a way that's called journalism.
Very true.
Maraming salamat po. Tunay na tunay, no? Kasi nabanggit din ni Miss Maris pati ni Mr. Ariel yung kung paano nga ba mas pinaniniwalaan ng YouTube sa pagkakaroon ng historical revisionism at kung ano pa, kunyari ay yung balita sa swab testing, mga nitong nakaraang buwan, ng swab testing daw ay tumatagos sa ating ulo. Kaya na maraming tao na takot na mas magpa-check kung mas mag-test.
Di ba?
Mahalaga rin talaga.
Correct. May I add, there's a study, you can Google it up, there's a study that says, sa survey, most Americans rely on social media, specifically Facebook, for news and information. Grabe. Ibig sabihin, pag lumabas na sa social media or sa Facebook as gospel truth, yun, papaniwalaan na nila yun.
True.
Without having to vet the information. Diba? It's so scary. It can destroy a nation. It can destroy a community. Diba? Yung ganong usapin sa fake news, disinformation.
And Sir, yeah, that explains why they're not the number one when it comes to COVID cases.
Correct. Grabe. That's so true. Oo. Kasi lahat ng myths, lahat ng sorry ha, lahat ng katarantaduhan na dapat katarantaduhan yun, pinapaliwalaan. Di ba? And sorry ha, this is not bashing America, but really, di ba? Pag tinignan mo na sila yung bastion of democracy, the last bastion for democracy, pero what's happening to them right now? Di ba? After the elections, ito, problema ng elections sila, ganun. So really, pag sinuri mo, di ba, Maris, it's a global pandemic of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation talaga.
That's very true. Kaya nga nakakaawa rin si Dr. Fauci eh.
True.
He keeps on explaining that it's based on science. Yung pag-wear na lang ng mask eh. Why? It's just very unfortunate that a lot of other people, di ba? Parang hindi sila naniniwala dun sa effectivity nung pagsusuot lang ng mask.
True. That's true.
Parang feeling nila, they've turned it into a political act. Na kapag halimbawa sinabihan ka na mag-mask ka, politika lang yan. Mag-mask ka para it's infringing on their freedom.
Correct. Tsaka isa pa, people think they're invincible and that they're going to be affected at all. Naapektuhan nga ng lagnat ng ubo. Virus pa kaya, di ba, na ganitong kalaki, di ba? What is like, mag-double ka na lang, meron kang face mask, meron kang face shield. Kasi sabi ko nga, di ba, Maris, di ba, we're like going back to the normalcy stage already, di ba? Pag andun na, nasa mall, etc., nasa palengke, brushing elbows, physical and all. Wala na, normal na. The least you can do talaga kasi wag ka na lang makasagap ng maling hininga. Parang gano'n. Di ba? Wag ka na lang makasagap ng maling air. And what can prevent you from doing that? Talagang mag-mask ka na, mag-face shield ka pa. Kasi wala, hindi mo maiwas ang pumunta sila ng palengke. And all. Tapos constraint pa, tapos meron pang yung air pa medyo, tawag ito, nasa isang lugar lang, walang proper ventilation. Yun na lang talaga. And I think that's not asking too much, di ba, Maris, di ba? Na mag-face mask, mag-face shield.
Opo, that's very true. Paulit-ulit na nga yan eh.
Oo, paulit-ulit. Basic talaga.
Ng authorities.
Ang saya naman ng usapan natin.
Thank you so much po for sharing your thoughts, Miss Maris and Mr. Ariel. Ayan, actually, fact-checking is natural or essential po sa ating mga journalists. But tama po kayo, it's a sad thing na hindi po siya ginagawa ng lahat ng Pilipino. But ang magandang bagay po doon ay sa social media po, meron tayong tinatawag na Fact Check Philippines na ngayon po ay unti-unti na rin po silang nakikilala dahil nga po
yung
sila
mga
ay
wrong
nagpa-fact check ng mga
information.
balita. Yes, sir. And kahit po yung mga lumang balita na yun po ay binabalikan nila para i-correct po ang mga maling information.
Correct.
So makakatulong po yun sa atin para po sa mga hindi pa nakakaalam. Fact Check Philippines po sa Facebook and also Verifiles sa Twitter. Ayan.
Oo.
Maraming salamat po ulit, Miss Maris
Mga
and
kachorno, mga
Mr.
kapwa,
Ariel.
isang malaking palakpak para kay Miss Maris at Mr. Ariel sa Polino.
Alright.
Maraming salamat po.
Ayan, so supposedly, partner, meron pa tayong isang resource speaker. That is Mr. Lord De Vera. But unfortunately, meron siyang urgent na appointment. So, hindi natin siya
makapunta si Lord.
makakasama. Pero,
Mm-mm.
yan. Yan. So, abangan po natin siya bukas ng
Ayun
1
pala.
p.m. Ayan. So, wag po kayong aalis. Alright. So, ngayon po ay dadako na tayo sa awarding of the winners. Partner, I'm so excited kahit hindi ako kasali.
Sa pagsama sa link. Takeaways sa mga ating mga pa-quiz nitong mga nakaraang basahin na natin. Una muna, sa quiz partner, ang unang-una ay mula sa 4th year BA Journalism, Kim Elordi. Congratulations, Kim! Sunod naman, Rhea Jean Ormenita. Congratulations, Rhea! Huli mula sa 3rd year, Leobert John Mazo. Congratulations, Leobert! Ito, sino naman nanalo sa mga takeaways na natutunan nila kay Miss Maris at
Para naman sa Share Your Takeaways, we have here Regina Arahan from Bajorn 32. Ayan. At saka si Nina Karil Tesorna Estacio. Ayan, palakpakan din natin. Thank you so much po sa mga nag-participate sa ating online quiz at sa ating Share Your Takeaways. You may now claim your nagtataginting na 100 pesos loan.
Ito ko yun yung nagtataginting. Ayan. Nalulungkot man kami na magtatapos ng ating programa. Hindi naman po tayo mabibitin dahil bukas na bukas magbabalik tayo. Kaya walang lipatan ng channel. Walang BBTU, walang aalis. Dahil bukas na bukas, tuloy-tuloy po ang ating pagpupunla ng kaalaman. Dito lamang sa 20th Journalism Seminar. Ethel?
Yes, and we hope to see you tomorrow again at 1 p.m. So this is just the beginning. We'll get to meet or emit more speakers and learn from them various topics. So wala na pong lipatan ulit ng channel. Tutok lang kayo. And again, these have been your host, Ethel Mangal.
And I'm Marvin Tuliwa. Pero bago tayo magtapos, hinga natin ang isang closing remark.
Right.
Miss Beng Manaig para sa ating programa. Miss Beng?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, we would like to thank all our university officials for supporting this endeavor. We would also like to thank Dr. Ilagan, our college dean, Ma'am Rose Hernandez, the department chairperson, and all the faculty members of the department and the college as well for their support, as always. We would like to express our sincerest gratitude to our speakers today, Ms. Maris Umali. Thank you, ma'am. And also to Mr. Ariel Severino for all the valuable insights and experiences that you have shared with all of us today. We all have gained a better understanding of the ins and outs of planning and gathering information for a news story and the importance of local news and the reality of community journalism. Thank you very much, sir and ma'am. We would like to thank all the more than 300 participants on our Facebook live stream and also the participants here on Zoom. Thank you for joining us today. I myself learned so much today, and I am definite that you all did too. And finally, I would like to commend the organizers of this event. The BA Journalism 4th year students, the senior students, thank you very much and congratulations. With, of course, the support and help of their dependable and hardworking professor, Sir Renz Kevin Alcazar. Thank you very much. This is just the first day of this webinar series. You've all worked very hard. Congratulations, everyone. And just like what I said, today is just the first day. Tomorrow, we will be joined by the equally notable and credible speakers and personalities like Mr. Mark Macalalad, Miss Julie Baisa, Miss Marina Trutona, and Mr. Marlon Nombrado. Probably would also be seeing Mr. Lord De Vera tomorrow. We hope to see you again tomorrow for the second installment of these webinar series. Again, thank you very much. May God bless us all and see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss
Thank
Ruby
you.
Manaig. Okay lang daw po na tayo ay mag-photo op before we formally end our program. Picture ulit!
Sama tayong lahat mga ka-Jorno.
Turn on our cameras. Ayos muna para
Ayan.
ma-refresh.
Kasama ang
So
ating
po,
mga
we request
organizing
everyone to turn on their cameras.
Social distancing lang tayo dito, no?
Ayan po. I will be taking the photo. So we have 2 slides po. Okay, so this is the first slide. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ayan po. Wait lang po. I-save ko lang agad. Next. Next slide. Okay po. Ready. 1, 2, 3. Ayan. Thank you so much po.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone. Thank you, Sir
Ayan,
Ariel.
maraming
and Miss
salamat
Maris.
po.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you po.
Thank
you, organizers.
Thank you po,
Miss
Miss
Maris,
Marie, Sir
regards to Sir
Ariel.
Rafi.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Maris.
Congratulations, students.
Bye, Sir Ariel.
Congratulations, Sir Arte.
Yes. Ingat-ingat. Lagi ingat.
Thank you, guys.
Ayan, to formally end our program, may evaluations po tayong ilalabas para sa pagbibigay ng review sa ating Day 1 at muli, wala pong BBTU dahil bukas na bukas, mayroon ulit tayong journalism seminar. Ethel?
Again, this have been your host. I am Ethel Mangao.
I am Marvin Tulibaw. Maraming salamat po sa ating lahat ngayon, sa ating guest speakers, sa lahat na nag-participate. Ito po ang ating 20th Journalism Seminar na may pamagat
True
na
lang. Mga istoryang pang-news at hindi fake. Maraming salamat sa pagsama sa amin.
Thank you po, Sir Ariel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you po, everyone. Thank you, Miss Maris.
Sir Renz ba yun? God bless.
Yes po. Thank you po, Miss Maris. Thank you po.
Team ha, pakisabi. Maraming salamat sa inyo for inviting
Yes
us.
po. Thank you po.
Yes.
Ingat po. Ingat always.
Marvin. Ay, magkasama rin pala kayo. Bye po.
Ingat
Bye
always.
po. Thank you po.
Mag-leave. Dean,
Yes,
bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Maris. Ingat po.
Kay Dean, kay Ma'am Rose. Ma'am
Enjoy
Jen.
the anniversary.
Thank you po. Sir Renz, bye-bye.
Thank you po. Bye-bye po.
Kay Sir Ariel. Thank you. God bless. Pwede na po mag-leave, no?
Yes po.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
po.
Thank you po.
Pa-autograph po pag nakita na namin kayo sa personal.
Wow! See you. God bless. Bye. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas po.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas po.
Thank you po.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Ate Maris.
Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
ha.
Ate.
Ate, ingat. Bye-bye. O, mag-leave na talaga ako, ha? Wala nang pahabol.
Bye.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.